Chapter 36-56. From the beginning, Ji Tianqing knew that Tao Yongsheng had the primordial chaos bell, and Xue Shang must also have a divine weapon of the same grade. In addition, these two patriarchs were old monsters who had cultivated for more than 20,000 years, and both had the strength of a 9th-level divine king. With his current strength, means, and equipment, it was basically impossible to kill Tao Yongsheng and Xue Shang. Only by using the sword formation ambush and poison sneak attack could he defeat and suppress the two of them. If it was a head-on confrontation, he would definitely not be able to defeat Xue Shang and Tao Yongsheng. So, from the beginning, his target was those elders and priests. In the distorted space, under the blood flame sacred tree, Ji Tianqing spent half a day before he finished sorting out the spatial rings of the high priest and the 3 elders of the Taotai clan. All the wealth of these 4 divine kings was sorted by him and put into the spatial rings. With a rough estimate, the wealth of these 4 added up to more than 2 trillion. Most of the wealth was in the form of ores and divine stones, followed by elixirs, materials, and divine weapons. Seeing the many divine weapons refined by the high priest and the 3 elders, Ji Tianqing could not help but shake his head and sigh. Sigh, star-devouring grotto heaven has so many ores and metal veins, it's simply a paradise for divine craftsmen. The attainments of these few fellows in artifact refinement simply can't be complimented. This is truly a reckless waste of God's gifts. There were many precious metals and refining materials, and with advanced refining techniques, they could be refined into king-grade upper divine weapons. In the end, the high priest and the 3 elders' refining skills were too ordinary, and they could not utilize the effects of the materials, only refining king-grade middle divine weapons. There was also a small portion of top refining materials that could be refined into king-grade upper divine weapons. In the end, the high priest and the 3 elders used them to refine king-grade upper divine weapons, just to ensure the success rate of refining. If this was not a waste, then what was? Ji Tianqing decided that when he had time, he must reforge all the divine weapons they refined. At that time, he would use those precious refining materials to refine more and higher quality divine weapons. Of course, the matter of upgrading the Sword of Burial of Heaven could also be put on the agenda. Ji Tianqing had already calculated that it was impossible to restore the Sword of Burial of Heaven to king-grade upper divine weapon with the current conditions. He could only upgrade it to king-grade upper divine weapon, and he needed 22 precious refining materials. Fortunately, he had already accumulated a few materials, and this time, he plundered more than 10 materials from the spoils of war. The spoils of war. After careful calculation, he still needed 5 materials to upgrade the Sword of Burial of Heaven's quality. First, to upgrade the Sword of Burial of Heaven's quality. Then I can upgrade the sword's grade. Judging from the current situation, I might be able to recover to the 7th layer of the Divine King realm in a few years. Ji Tianqing silently calculated, and a gratified smile appeared on his face. However, what he was to do it. It was to recuperate and restore his divine power, and refine the high priest and the 3 elders' divinity fragments. He first took out a large number of dawn stones and divine pills to recuperate and restore his divine power. Half a month later, he had recovered to his peak condition and started to refine the 4 divinity fragments. Ever since he obtained the devouring divine ability, he had refined many monarch and god-king divinity fragments to upgrade his strength. This time, the divinity fragments he had obtained were of the highest grade and the most powerful ones. The 3 elders, including Tao Yuxing, actually all had the strength of a high divine king. The grand priest was a LV9 divine king realm expert. If Ji Tianqing had not broken through to the 6th level god king realm, set up the heaven punishing sword formation, and used the heaven killing soul transference poison, it was basically impossible for him to kill a 9th level god king. Therefore, this was the first time he had obtained a 9th level god king's divinity. In the process of refining the divinity fragments, the speed of his improvement had obviously increased. Especially the number of divine Tao laws contained in the 4 divinity fragments had far surpassed before. If it were in the past, Ji Tianqing only needed 1 to 2 months to refine the 4 divinity fragments. But this time, he actually spent a full half a year's time. Of course, after circulating and refining for half a year, the improvement effect was still very obvious. He had clearly just broken through to the 6th level God King realm, but reached the middle stage 6th level realm. His strength had increased by 3 times. At the same time, he stripped 30 types of divine Tao laws from the 4 divinity fragments. Currently, the number of divine Tao laws he had grasped had reached a shocking 610. Generally speaking, only 9th stage realm divine king experts were able to grasp so many divine Tao laws. Even if it was a peak divine king, they tended to only grasp 700 over laws too. The him in his previous life, as the world-renowned Kenshin, only grasped 1,000 divine Tao laws. And now, he was only at the 6th level God King realm and already grasped so many divine Tao laws. What was certain was that the number of divine Tao laws he could grasp in this life absolutely far surpassed his past life. Ji Tianqing was in closed seclusion in the distorted spacetime for more than half a year, but only 4 days had passed in the outside world. After ending cultivation, he asked the burial of heaven via divine soul voice transmission. Knowing that everything was normal and that nobody was tailing and pursuing, only then did he continue to cultivate with ease. Following that, he retrieved the 9 heavens divine cauldron from the divine medicine pavilion in Kenshin's tomb. Following that, he took out the materials and supplementary materials required to refine the 9 revolutions stellar rhythm pill and started refining the 9 revolutions stellar rhythm pill under the blood flame sacred tree. Swoosh! 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 Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged, his eyes clear and his expression unruffled like an ancient well. Both hands formed divine seals, firing out rays of divine light continuously. The 9 heavens divine cauldron transformed into a radius of 100 feet, suspended in midair, rotating slowly, treasure light flickering. Divine fire lingered inside the cauldron, with unparalleled berserk divine power surging. Ji Tianqing displayed his pill refining skills step by step, fully focused on refining the divine pill. The 9 revolution stellar rhythm pill was one of the most difficult to refine among the high-grade king-level divine pills. He had to concentrate fully and not allow the slightest mistake. Of course, this would take a long time, definitely not something that could be completed in 2 or 3 months. Unknowingly, 9 days had passed since the battle between Ji Tianqing, Xueshang, and Tao Yongsheng. With Xueshang's tireless efforts and Tao Yongsheng's cooperation, the two of them finally broke through the heaven punishment sword formation. Of course, the main reason they could break through the heaven punishment sword formation in just a few days was that Ji Tianqing had taken hundreds of divine weapons and divine swords with him when he left. Those were all used as the foundation of the formation to strengthen the power of the sword formation. Since Ji Tianqing had taken them with him, the power of the sword formation would naturally weaken. Moreover, without more divine power injected into the sword formation and without Ji Tianqing to maintain the operation of the sword formation would only rely on itself to operate and absorb the divine power of heaven and earth, further weakening its power. Because of this, Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng could quickly break through the heaven punishment sword formation. That's right, they had blasted a hole in the sword formation and escaped through the hole, not really breaking through the sword formation. If they wanted to break through the heaven punishment sword formation, they would have to spend at least 10 times more time. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 3657. Phew. I finally escaped. That goddamn bastard, there will come a day when I will grind his bones and scatter his ashes. Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng, who had just escaped from the heaven punishment sword formation, stood above the surging sun lake, panting heavily. Xueshang was fine. He quickly took out a divine elixir to suppress the poison in his body and quickly recover his divine power. Tao Yongsheng, on the other hand, turned his head to look at the heaven punishment sword formation above the lake and cursed angrily. Xueshang glanced at him and said indifferently, "Why do you only remember the words turn him into ashes? In these 9 days, I have heard it more than 100 times. My ears are getting calluses. Old Tao, can you change the words? Tao Yongxing did not speak. He just stared at him with a black face. Xue Shang continued, besides, you and your clansmen can't kill him. Even if you want to kill Long Tian, it will be the masters of the various territories and the experts of the Thousand Demon Alliance. You want to turn him into ashes with your own hands? Just give up on that idea. Tao Yongxing said expressionlessly, I have already made an agreement with the Great Elder, Hu Xinyue. No matter who killed Long Tian, he will be turned into ashes. Is that so? Hu Xinyue is so easy to talk to. Xue Shang looked at him with surprise. Tao Yongxing's face twitched. He gritted his teeth and said, the condition is to increase the bounty by another 5 billion. Xue Shang could not help but roll his eyes. He cupped his hands and said, you are rich. Take your time. I still have to go back and circulate my energy to treat the poison and help the right guardian dispel the poison and heal his injuries. After that, he bowed to Tao Yongxing and got ready to leave. Tao Yongxing frowned and asked with a gloomy face, Xue Shang. You really don't want to join forces with me? You are in a hurry to leave? Xue Shang spread out his hands and said, anyway, we can't do anything. You have also issued a bounty. Naturally, someone will kill him. Why should I stay here? Tao Yongxing glanced at him coldly and said with a sneer, are you scared by him? Are you scared and don't dare to take revenge? Don't you care about the loss of the Cheong Chi clan and the loss of face? He. Can you still hold your head high in the future? Xue Shang curled his lips disapprovingly and said, whatever you say, I will not participate in this matter. You have already tricked me once. How can I let you trick me a second time? If I could turn back time, I would rather give up your money and conditions than sacrifice the left guardian and the 3 elders. To Xue Shang, the left protector and the 3 elders were his left and right arms. They were godly king experts that could not be bought with 2 trillion in wealth. Tao Yongxing looked at him with a sharp gaze and sneered, very good. Xue Shang, you may be shameless and have no backbone, but I do. Let's wait and see. After that, he left Shang. Xue Shang looked at his back and shouted, don't forget the money you owe me and those conditions. You can't leave out a single one. Humph. Tao Yongxing snorted and left without looking back. Xue Shang sneered and thought to himself, old man, I will let you be proud for a few days. When I take over the star-devouring grotto heaven, I will see your expression. Then, he turned and left, returning to the star-cloud grotto heaven. The northwest of the star source continent was originally remote. It was not as prosperous as the central part of the continent. Since the rise of the Myriad Demon League, this region had been peaceful for hundreds of years. The territorial masters of more than 30 regions, many first-rate forces, and experts were in awe of the Myriad Demon League. They did not dare to cause any trouble. However, in recent days, the northwest regions, which had been peaceful for hundreds of years, had become lively. This was because the Myriad Demon League had issued a bounty to the 32 regions in the northwest region. The Myriad Demon League had issued a bounty of 2 king-grade upper divine artifacts and 50 billion divine stones to kill a divine king of the dragon clan named Long Tian. This person had the strength of an upper divine king. He was sinister, cruel, and cunning. He was very difficult to deal with. It was recommended that only experts with the strength of a middle divine king and above could accept this mission. Anyone who completed the mission and killed Long Tian would be rewarded with another 50 billion divine stones. When this bounty spread in the 32 regions, it caused an uproar. Hundreds of millions of demon clan experts and experts discussed it. Countless people were asking about the background and identity of the Dragon Clan's divine king. Why did he have enmity with the Myriad Demon League? Where was this person now? For a moment, countless first-rate forces and divine king experts were discussing this matter. A bounty worth over 100 billion divine stones was the first time it had appeared in the past few hundred years. It caused countless divine king experts to be restless. Even those upper divine kings with hundreds of billions of divine stones were very tempted and looked forward to it. After all, this bounty was too generous and attractive. In the bounty that the Myriad Demon League had announced, there was a portrait of Long Tian and a brief introduction of him. However, anyone who had seen the bounty would remember it. After all, the latter part of the bounty stated that anyone who could provide Long Tian's whereabouts and information would be rewarded with hundreds of millions or billions of divine stones. Killing Long Tian was a matter for middle divine kings and upper divine kings. However, there was no threshold for providing information and clues. Anyone could do it. For a moment, the 32 regions in the northwestern region were in a frenzy. Countless divine lords, divine kings, and forces heard the news and moved to search for Long Tian's whereabouts. As for the name Long Tian, it quickly became known by everyone, and it was praised by everyone. During this period of time, countless demon clan citizens in the empires would see forces after forces searching for something all over the world. When the forces met, they would often mention the two words Long Tian. Suddenly, many demon clan citizens in the empires also began to spread rumors. Everyone believed that the divine king called Tianqing was a cruel and evil person who committed all kinds of crimes. The Myriad Demon League wanted to uphold justice for Tianqing. There were actually countless citizens praying and hoping that the Myriad Demon League would succeed as soon as possible and kill the evil Long Tian. 12 days after the battle at the Gushing Sun Lake, the sword of burial of heaven flew continuously. It had already crossed 2 regions and entered the icy pine region. This place was in the north of the continent. It was still 4 regions away from the Golden Rock Tribe's 9 mystical caves. Simply put, Ji Tianqing was already more than halfway to the 9 mystical caves. At this moment, he had already been in the distorted spacetime and focused on refining pills for an entire year. After more than 360 days of refining, the 9-turn star rhythm pill was finally completed. Swoosh! When the 9-heaven cauldron opened, 9 streaks of crimson red, dark green, and dark gold divine light shot up into the sky. There were actually the roars of dragons and phoenixes from within the divine cauldron. The sun and moon rotated in the sky, and billions of stars flickered. An extremely vast and mighty aura surged out from the divine cauldron. The surging divine power aura also spread out from the divine cauldron. When the space was distorted, it swept up 5-colored air waves. Under such a phenomenon, a thumb-sized pill with dazzling starlight slowly rose up. Chapter 3658. Based on the color, texture, pill patterns, medicinal efficacy, and charm, they are all top-notch. Under the blood flame sacred tree, Ji Tianqing held the 9 revolution star rhyme pill in his hand and carefully observed it, revealing a gratified smile. Even though he had the strength of the 6th king god layer, he was still able to refine the 9-turn stellar rhythm pellet. This caused his divine power and mind to be greatly exhausted. Now, his divine power was exhausted, and his mind was exhausted. Furthermore, the time required to concoct this pill was also slightly longer. It took an entire year. But this was the first time he refined the 9 revolution star rhyme pill in his life, and he succeeded without a hitch. Moreover, the 9 revolution stellar rhyme pill that was refined was of exceptional quality. This was enough to make him feel gratified and satisfied. It's a pity that my strength has increased explosively in the past year. My progress is too fast, and I'm afraid that my foundation will be shaky. If he were to consume the 9-turn stellar rhyme pellet now, even if he could reach the peak of the 6th heavenly god realm, it would be hard for him to break through the bottleneck and reach the 7th heavenly god realm. On the contrary, it will further exacerbate the problem of a weak foundation, leading to problems in subsequent cultivation. Ji Tianqing held the 9 Revolution Star Rhyme pill and frowned for a while before putting it into a treasure box and storing it in his space ring. Forget it, I should consolidate my strength first. It won't be too late to take this pill after my foundation is solid. Ji Tianqing put away the divine pellet and the 9 heavens divine cauldron. He flew up into the void and circled around the Shui Yan sacred tree. After observing everyone's cultivation, he received a few more pieces of good news. First, it was Lin Shui, Sir God Blood Illusion, and the rest. Their powers had increased tremendously and they were improving rapidly. In the past, they had cultivated in the divine battleship. The environment and resources there were very ordinary. Now, under the distorted spacetime and the blood flame sacred tree, the cultivation environment could be said to be excellent, and the resources were endless. It was only natural for them to increase their strength quickly. Ji Tianqing looked at Monarch God Blood Illusion, who was at the 9th level of the divine monarch realm, and then looked at the towering blood flame sacred tree. A thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. The second piece of good news was that White Dragon, Black Dragon, Qianyu, and Wushuang already reached the 9th level divine lord realm. Currently, they were cultivating diligently to strengthen their foundations and prepare to break through to the divine king realm. Ever since they had followed Ji Tianqing into the god world, they rarely had the chance to show their faces. They spent almost all of their time cultivating in the distorted spacetime, desperately improving their strength. Even if there were times when he was tired from training and encountered bottlenecks and shackles, he could only move around in the distorted spacetime and communicate with others and confide in them. This was because Ji Tianqing had once said that only when they reached the God King realm would they have the qualifications to roam the God world. And now, they were not far from the divine king realm. As for the Zhenhong who improved the slowest, he also reached peak 8th level divine lord and was still silently working hard. The third piece of good news was that Ji Ku, Yun Yao, and Lan had all broken through. Lan had been stuck at the first tier of the divine king realm for many years. She then cultivated in the distorted space for dozens of years before she successfully broke through to the second tier of the divine king realm. But Ji Ku and Yun Yao were different. They were already at the 3rd level of the God King realm. Both of them had their own fortuitous encounters and inheritances, except for the time when they were trying to break through to the God King realm. After reaching the God King realm, they no longer had any restrictions or bottlenecks, and their strength soared all the way. Such an exaggerated speed of improvement gave even Ji Tianqing a shock, let alone Chao Qingyu and Yank. These two people's improvement was relatively slow, and they had not broken through yet. However, they were not in a hurry and felt that it was normal. Which God King powerhouse in this world did not spend hundreds or thousands of years before they could break through to the next tier? Only Ji Tianqing's family was not normal, and that was why they were so terrifying. After checking on everyone's situation, Ji Tianqing went to visit Peng Fei and Bai Feng. These two people had been circulating their energy to recuperate for so long, and their injuries had mostly recovered. They were still recuperating in peace. Ji Tianqing did not disturb them. After secretly checking on the situation, he quietly left. Next, he used divine telekinesis voice transmission to converse with Buried Heaven. Burial of Heaven, where are we now? Burial of Heaven's voice quickly sounded in his mind. We just entered the freezing pine region today, and we are still far from the 9 mystical caves heaven. We still need about half a month. The situation was in line with Ji Tianqing's expectations. He asked again, have there been any abnormalities in the past few days? Burial of Heaven was silent for a moment, then answered, when we passed by the cities of the various regions and empires, we heard some rumors. The God King powerhouses of the surrounding regions have all appeared recently, as if they are looking for something. There are also many top factions that have sent large groups of powerhouses to search for something. When Ji Tianqing stayed in the Sword World and entered the Divine Pagoda to cultivate, Burial of Heaven traveled alone. Everyone's safety was tied to it. Therefore, it became especially cautious and vigilant. It normally would not fly at full speed, and would constantly monitor the situation within tens of thousands of miles while traveling. If there was any movement or abnormality, it would be able to discover it in advance and inform Ji Tianqing. In this way, it passed through 2 regions and countless empires and cities, and naturally gathered some information. However, it did not stop to specifically scout for information, so it was not clear about the specific situation. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment, then said calmly, "The world is too big, and many things happen every day. Perhaps some divine weapon or treasure has appeared in the world, provoking those powerhouses to fight over it. In short, it has nothing to do with us." At this moment, Burial of Heaven was silent for a moment, then suddenly said with a strange tone, "This matter is a little strange, and it might have something to do with us. There are people in front, should we ask about the situation?" Ji Tianqing was startled for a moment, then hurriedly used his mind to communicate with Burial of Heaven. From Burial of Heaven's perspective, he scouted the surrounding tens of thousands of miles. He immediately saw that Burial of Heaven was flying above the vast sea of clouds. Below the sea of clouds was a boundless primordial forest, dark green and green, surrounded by clouds and smoke. And in the sky 20,000 miles ahead, there was a dark golden majestic divine warship, flying toward them as fast as lightning. Although the divine warship had a strange shape, and there were pictures and emblems engraved on it. However, after careful observation, Ji Tianqing did not recognize which powerhouse it was, or which faction it belonged to. At the same time, he released his divine sense to envelop the divine warship, wanting to investigate the situation inside. In the end, it turned out to be a king-level high-grade divine warship, protected by a powerful divine array that blocked all probing. Thus, he had Burial of Heaven change direction, avoiding the divine warship, and probing the other party's intentions. Unexpectedly, the divine warship also changed direction and accelerated to intercept Burial of Heaven. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he muttered to himself, "It looks like they're coming for me. I didn't show myself, and they only saw Burial of Heaven. This is most likely not without reason, and it's very likely that there's a previous grudge that hasn't been resolved." Thinking of this, he thought of Tao Yongsheng and Xue Shang, and could not help but frown. Those 2 fellows have already sworn a heavenly oath, so how dare they continue to pester me? Chapter 36-59. It was a pity that the sword of Burial of Heaven was only a mid-grade king-grade sword. The majestic dark gold divine ship was a high-grade king-grade divine artifact. In comparison, the speed of the sword of Burial of Heaven was obviously slower. Both parties had only chased for 10,000 miles when the sword of Burial of Heaven was caught up by the divine ship. The sword of Burial of Heaven wanted to start the battle immediately. No matter who was in the divine ship, it would attack them first. However, Ji Tianqing used his divine thought to ask the sword of Burial of Heaven to stop in the sky and observe the situation. As expected, the divine ship stopped in front of the sword of Burial of Heaven. Swoosh! Swoosh! A divine light flashed and more than 30 demon-clan godly monarchs of different shapes flew out of the divine ship. Most of these godly monarchs had obvious racial characteristics. They were holding sabers, spears, swords, halberds, and various other weapons. They quickly spread out and surrounded the sword of Burial of Heaven. Immediately after, the divine warship was put away, and 4 powerful and dignified god-king powerhouses appeared. Swoosh! The burly Kuei Cow man was surrounded by purple lightning. He was more than 10 feet tall and was the leader of the god kings. He was wearing a pitch-black divine armor and carried a dark purple divine hammer the size of a millstone on his back. He exuded a fierce and domineering aura. His strength had already reached the upper-level god-king realm. He was at the 7th-level god-king realm. The other 3 god-king experts were from the Bear clan, the Wolf clan, and the Tiger clan. Their physiques and appearances were different. However, their strengths were similar. They were all 6th-level god kings. Such a force, placed anywhere on the Starsource continent, would be a top-notch force. Even an ordinary domain master might not be comparable to them. However, Ji Tianqing secretly sized them up. He did not recognize the 4 God King experts, nor could he tell their identities and backgrounds. The sword of burial of heaven floated in the sky quietly and motionlessly. More than 30 god monarchs surrounded it as though they were facing a great enemy. They were on high alert. The 4 god kings stared at the sword of burial of heaven for a long time before sneering complacently. The tiger race god king with the character, King, on his forehead stroked his beard and sneered, "Sect Master, our luck is still good." Previously, in Winter Pine Imperial City, those fellows were still high and mighty, each of them solemnly swearing that they would be the first to find Long Tian. "I didn't think that the heavens would favor our scorching sun sect and let us find it first." The other god king of the Wolf clan had a smug look in his dark green eyes. He said in a sinister tone, "Our sect master is a person of great fortune. The heavens naturally favor him." This brat used all his tricks to evade the encirclement and interception of countless forces and experts, but in the end, he still fell into our hands. Perhaps this is his fate. The stocky god king of the bear race sneered coldly and said in a low, muffled voice, "It was not in vain that we used the entire sect's manpower and spent hundreds of millions of resources to buy this crucial piece of information. We will soon see the returns." It was obvious that these 3 god kings were elders of the Scorching Sun sect. Their leader, the god race male wearing black armor and carrying a divine hammer on his back, was the Scorching Sun sect sect master. The Scorching Sun sect master did not show any signs of complacency when he heard the 3's praises. He carefully examined the sword of burial of heaven for a moment before saying in a low voice, "The appearance, details, and aura of this sword are the same as described in the bounty. This should be Long Tian's sword. Long Tian should be hiding in this sword. I didn't think that this brat would be as arrogant as the rumors say. He offended the 10,000 Demon Alliance and revealed his sword, but he did not hide it and even used this sword to travel. How confident." When the 3 god kings heard this, they were about to mock and ridicule him. However, the Scorching Sun sect master said with a serious expression, "From this, it can be seen that this Long Tian's strength and methods are extraordinary. Furthermore, someone who dares to offend the 10,000 Demon Alliance must be a peak expert. Everyone, do not let down your guard. Treat this with caution." The 3 god kings hurriedly put away their joking expressions and cupped their hands together in obeisance. At this moment, Ji Tianqing, who was in the sword world, heard the conversation between the Scorching Sun sect master and the 3 god kings clearly. He immediately frowned as a cold light flashed through his eyes. Scorching Sun sect. 10,000 Demon Alliance. Bounty? Naturally, he understood the meaning of the words bounty. However, he had never heard of the Scorching Sun sect or the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Thus, he hurriedly used his consciousness to contact Peng Fei, who was recuperating in the Divine Tower, and asked about the 10,000 Demon Alliance's history and background. Peng Fei was focused on recuperating when he suddenly heard Ji Tianqing's voice and the words, 10,000 Demon Alliance. He immediately woke up. "Senior, didn't we have a grudge with the Cheongqi and Taotai clans? Why is the 10,000 Demon Alliance involved? When did you offend the 10,000 Demon Alliance?" The 10,000 Demon Alliance is one of the top super forces in the Starsource continent. They have peak god kings. Peng Fei's tone was filled with shock and deep worry. Evidently, the 10,000 Demon Alliance was extremely famous. Even the 9 Mystical Paradise, Nebula Paradise, and Star-Devouring Paradise could not afford to offend them. Ji Tianqing was also confused, so he asked Peng Fei to give him a simple introduction of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Only after Peng Fei's explanation did he understand what kind of existence the 10,000 Demon Alliance was. At this moment, the Scorching Sun sect master and the 3 god kings had run out of patience. They were anxious from waiting and all began to call out. "Long Tian! I am the sect master of the Scorching Sun sect. I have come on the 10,000 Demon Alliance's bounty to take your life. Do you plan on hiding in the sword forever? The Scorching Sun sect master asked coldly as he looked at the sword of burial of heaven expressionlessly. The God King of the Wolf clan sneered and mocked, right now, your name and deeds are being spread across the 30 or so regions of the continent. It's said that you've killed many people of the Cheongchi and Taotai clans and have a deep grudge with the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Since you're so arrogant and despotic, why are you acting like a coward now? The God King of the Tiger clan stroked his beard and sneered disdainfully, it must be our sect master's peerless might that has scared you silly, right? Ha ha ha, or perhaps you're seriously injured and are hiding in the sword to heal yourself, so you don't dare to show yourself. Their cold laughter echoed in the sky. The Scorching Sun sect master secretly gave him a look and sent a message, Long Tian is arrogant and despotic. He's cruel and bloodthirsty. He's definitely not a patient person. If he keeps hiding in the sword and doesn't show himself, he must be seriously injured and weak. This is such a good opportunity. We'll destroy his sword and force him to show himself. Then, we'll work together to kill him. We'll grind his bones to dust and take his godhead and belongings back to the 10,000 Demon Alliance for the reward. Third Elder, remember to use a photographic crystal to record the scene of us killing Long Tian and grinding his bones to dust. Take the evidence to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Only then will they happily pay. The God King of the Wolf clan smiled coldly. He bowed slightly and sent a message, yes, sect master. Chapter 3660. The Broken Sun sect master and the 3 elders didn't act rashly. They surrounded the sword of burial of heaven and waited for Ji Tianqing to show himself. At the same time, they secretly used divine powers and secret techniques to form a sealing array that sealed off the area within 10,000 miles. This way, they could block out divine sense and seal off all movement and shadows. Not only did they have to kill Ji Tianqing, but they also had to guard against other forces who saw the abnormality and came to interfere. Only the Broken Sun sect could do this. Soon, the sealing formation was completed, and the time it took for an incense stick to burn had passed. The sword of burial of heaven still didn't move. Ji Tianqing still didn't show himself. The 3 elders couldn't wait any longer. They told the Broken Sun sect master to destroy the sword immediately. The Broken Sun sect master was about to nod. At this moment, a white light flashed across the sword of burial of heaven. A young man from the dragon tribe in a white robe finally appeared in the sky, his entire body radiating golden light. Whoosh! He stood proudly with the sword of burial of heaven in his right hand. He glanced at the Broken Sun sect master and the others and smiled coldly. The Cheongchi and Taotai races were bullied and didn't dare to take revenge, so they asked the 10,000 Beast Alliance for help and even issued a bounty. The Broken Sun sect master and the 3 elders were stunned when they saw that Ji Tianqing was unharmed and had a powerful aura and mysterious strength. Immediately after, they all took out their divine weapons and stared at Ji Tianqing with vigilance. Even though they said it casually, they were just trying to encourage themselves. They knew that Long Tian was very strong and they had to fight him with all their might. The Broken Sun sect master stared at Long Tian and asked, if that's the case, do you admit that you're Long Tian? Ji Tianqing sneered calmly. That's right. I'm Long Tian. Why wouldn't I admit it? The Broken Sun sect master nodded. Very good. Even though we want to kill you, I still have to say that you're very courageous. Ji Tianqing didn't want to waste time with him. He said in a deep voice, let me see the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect sneered, after I kill you, I'll take the bounty to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. How can I show it to you? Ji Tianqing frowned and asked again, how much is the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance? The Tiger Race Divine King curled his mouth and said with a cold laugh, you brat, your death is at hand and you're actually still concerned about the price of the bounty. 2 king-grade high-grade divine artifacts and 50 billion divine stones. If I grind your bones to dust, I'll add another 5 billion god stones. Ha ha ha. Kid, this is the most expensive bounty in the last few hundred years. You should be proud that you were killed today. Ji Tianqing frowned and was silent. He thought to himself, I have no grudge against the Myriad Demon Alliance. They can't possibly offer so much wealth as a bounty for me. Tao Yongxing must have asked the 10,000 Demon Alliance for help because he hates me so much. Ha! I thought I could force them to swear a heavenly oath and this would be the end of the matter. I didn't expect Tao Yongxing to keep pestering me. He didn't dare to take revenge himself, so he used such a despicable method. If I knew this would happen, I would have been ruthless and destroyed the star-devouring cave. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the 3 divine kings saw his gloomy face and silence. They immediately grinned coldly. Ha! Kid, now you know fear. To tell you the truth, the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance has spread throughout the 32 northwestern regions. Right now, there are at least a few dozen top forces and more than 100 God King experts who are trying to kill you. However, you have nothing to worry about. Those forces and experts won't have a chance. Just die under our blades and everything will be over. As they spoke, the 4 experts revealed sinister sneers as they raised their swords and sabers one after another. The 30 or so god monarchs around them also crazily gathered their divine power and surged with murderous intent. A great battle was about to break out. Ji Tianqing stood with his sword in hand as he sneered mockingly, the Scorching Sun sect. I've never heard of this name before. It must be a sect that has risen in the past 1,000 years, right? There shouldn't be many sects of this scale and foundation on the Star Source continent. A top force is willing to sacrifice the future of their entire sect for a mere 50 billion god stones and 2 high king-grade divine artifacts. Don't you want to reconsider? Hearing this, the sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the 3 elders were stunned. Then the 3 elders laughed as if they had heard the funniest joke in the world. Ha ha ha. If you're afraid of death, just admit defeat and surrender. Why do you have to be so tactful? Humph. You're about to die, and you're still putting on airs. If we kill you, not only will we be able to easily obtain resources and treasures worth hundreds of billions, we'll also be favored by the 10,000 Demon Alliance. This is definitely a great deal. Alright, Long Tian, let's cut the crap. We'll send you on your way now. The Scorching Sun sect was a rather famous top force in the northwestern region. It was a pity that it was still a small shrimp compared to the behemoth that was the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Treasures and treasures worth hundreds of billions were tempting. However, winning the favor and support of the 10,000 Demon Alliance was what the Scorching Sun sect wanted the most. Kill him. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect waved his sleeves and raised his hammer as he gave the order. Instantly, over 30 Sir God powerhouses brandished their weapons without any regard for their own safety. They used all sorts of divine abilities and ultimate skills to besiege Ji Tianqing. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the 3 elders held their weapons tightly and were ready to attack. Once Ji Tianqing was fighting with the god monarchs and revealed even the slightest flaw, they would launch a thunderous attack. However, they miscalculated. Ji Tianqing didn't move at all as the divine lords charged at him. Even though the sky was filled with divine light and shadows, he didn't even look at them. Even when the divine lords were close, he didn't draw his sword. He only smiled disdainfully. Buzz! An invisible divine soul power suddenly burst out of his body and turned into transparent ripples that spread in all directions. Bang, 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 bang. In the next moment, an invisible divine soul shockwave swept out in all directions, striking more than 30 divine lord experts. Following a series of muffled sounds, the bodies of the 30-odd Sir Gods shook violently. Their heads exploded and blood splattered everywhere. They didn't even have time to scream before their divine souls were destroyed and their divine heads shattered. They died on the spot. Plop, plop, more than 30 divine lords fell from the sky like dumplings, causing the ground to shake and dust to fly everywhere. It was only at this moment that the divine arts that were falling from the sky landed on Ji Tianqing's body one after another. The surface of his body glowed with a faint golden light, which condensed into a transparent light shield. Despite being bombarded by dozens of divine light shadows, the light shield remained unaffected, not even the slightest bit affected. Just like that, Ji Tianqing stood where he was without moving. He didn't even lift a finger and instantly killed more than 30 Sir Gods. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the 3 elders widened their eyes in shock. Chapter 36-61. He's actually, so valiant. Our sect's 30 over elites, he didn't even lift a finger and they were all killed. This lad is indeed terrifying. The 3 elders' expressions changed drastically as they gulped and their hearts were filled with terror. They were also God King experts and each of them had the ability and means to kill 30 over God monarchs. But they had to go through a bloody battle and at least display a few moves before they could do it. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing didn't even lift a finger or unsheath his sword. Just a single soul attack was enough to kill 30 over God monarchs. Such ability and means were extremely terrifying. In an instant, Sect Master and the 3 elders were stunned as they forgot to attack. Especially the 3 elders, their backs were drenched in cold sweat as they suddenly regretted accepting this mission. At this moment, Ji Tianqing looked at them with a smile and opened his mouth. Originally, you guys were here to kill this king and this battle was baffling. But since you insist on sending yourselves to your deaths, how can this king not grant you your wish? 1/7 stage realm, 3/6 stage realm. Although the quality isn't good, but it's still not bad. It's comparable to 100 years of cultivation. As he said that, he slowly raised the sword of burial of heaven as he started to accumulate God power in his body. Sect Master and the 3 elders instantly panicked as their gazes darted around and their hearts trembled. The clumsy Bear Clan elder couldn't help but ask, the quality isn't good and it's comparable to 100 years of cultivation. What does he mean? Wolf Clan elder's gaze was chilly as he said in a low voice, perhaps, he wants to eat us and absorb our powers. Tiger Clan elder cursed angrily, this bastard, how dare he belittle us. Just 100 years of cultivation. We've all cultivated for tens of thousands of years. Without waiting for Tiger Clan elder to finish his words, Ji Tianqing had already made his move. Heavenly Dragon World / Dragon Elephant God Fist. Ji Tianqing suddenly took a step forward as his left fist punched out a huge dragon elephant image while his right hand slashed out 1,000 feet long golden dragon sword light. In an instant, the roars of dragons and tigers exploded in the sky, deafening everyone. The ferocious dragon elephant fist contained the divine power of 300 laws, and it instantly enveloped the cruel Sun sect master along with the divine patterns and shadows of laws. As for the 1,000 zhonglong saber light that resembled the roar of a golden dragon, it unleashed a might that could cleave apart the heavens and earth as it slashed towards the Tiger God King. Boom! With a thunderous boom, the cruel Sun sect master was the first to be sent flying. Even though he had used all his strength to cast his ultimate skill, he still couldn't block the draconic elephant divine fist. Blood spurted out of his 7 orifices, and his chest caved in. He flew backward for 300 miles before he finally stopped. Boom! Another muffled explosion erupted. The Tiger Tribe God Monarch's all-out defensive divine ability was instantly sliced apart by the golden dragon saber light. His entire body was split into 2 halves by the saber light. Divine blood spurted out and splashed across the sky. When the corpse fell from the sky and smashed into the ground, there was no more sound. Even his godhead had been sliced into pieces and scattered across the sky. He had died just like that. A dignified 6th-degree realm god king was actually killed by Ji Tianqing in one strike. The bear tribe and wolf tribe's god kings saw this with their own eyes and were instantly scared out of their wits. They fled in panic. 300 miles away, the severely injured Cruel Sun sect master was also filled with fear and had thoughts of retreating. Before meeting Long Tian, they were already mentally prepared and knew that Long Tian was very powerful. But when they truly fought with Long Tian, they realized that, this wasn't called being very strong, this was called being terrifyingly strong. Even if the bounty was 500 billion, they wouldn't do it, let alone 50 billion. No amount of resources or treasures was more important than their lives. Seeing the Cruel Sun sect master and the two elders fleeing in panic, Ji Tianqing's figure flashed as he teleported beside them and began to chase after them. Since you're here, then stay here. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing shouted coldly as he slashed the burial of heaven at the wolf tribe's god king with all his might. Heaven-piercing sword. The sacred sword light that was thousands of feet long carried the divine power of hundreds of laws as it exploded with a divine power that could destroy everything. It slashed through the sky and struck the wolf tribe's god king. Kaboom! With a thunderous explosion, the sword light destroyed all obstacles and killed the wolf tribe's god king on the spot, shattering his bones. No matter if it was a divine power or a protective divine armor, they were all useless. After killing the wolf tribe's god king in one strike, Ji Tianqing's figure flashed again and he caught up with the bear tribe's god king. The bear tribe's god king had just escaped to the edge of the ceiling array and was about to escape from danger. However, Ji Tianqing slashed out with the sword of spacetime and created a crack in the void that was tens of thousands of feet long, shattering him into pieces. No matter how he tried to escape, the sword of spacetime had already sealed the space and he couldn't move at all. He could only wait for death. In an instant, the bear tribe's god king was also shattered into pieces as his divine spark exploded and he died on the spot. While Ji Tianqing killed the three elders, the heavily injured Cruel Sun sect master escaped from the ceiling array in a wretched state. Whoosh! He flew into the blue sky and rushed to the top of the sea of clouds as fast as he could. He flew into the sky above the vast sea of clouds and was about to take out the divine ship to continue escaping. At this moment, a white light flashed before him, and Ji Tianqing appeared out of nowhere. Whoosh! A dazzling sword light expanded and instantly struck the Cruel Sun sect master. He couldn't dodge in time and could only activate his protective divine light to the limit to block it with all his might. Kaboom! However, it was a pity that the protective divine light was shattered instantly. The king-level high-level divine armor he wore was also dented by the sword light. It became even more tattered. He was sent flying again. His face was covered in blood as he crashed miserably into the sea of clouds. With the king-level high-quality divine armor protecting him, he wasn't killed instantly and luckily survived. However, before he could escape again, Ji Tianqing appeared before him and placed the cold burial of heaven against his neck. Whoosh! The Cruel Sun sect master instinctively closed his eyes and waited for death to descend. However, the Heaven Burier sword stopped at his shoulder. The blade was only half an inch away from his neck, but it did not slash down. The Cruel Sun sect master was stunned. He opened his eyes and looked at Ji Tianqing. Why didn't you kill me? Are you going to spare my life? Suddenly realizing something, the Cruel Sun sect master was overjoyed and emotional. However, Ji Tianqing extinguished his fantasies. Take out your communication jade slip and send a message to the other forces, he said emotionlessly. Report your location and results. The Cruel Sun sect master was stunned. He couldn't quite react. Report truthfully. Then won't the other forces swarm over and you'll be killed soon? I get it. You want me to fake the news and say that you've been killed so that others won't chase after you, right? The Cruel Sun sect master thought he was smart and guessed Ji Tianqing's intentions. However, Ji Tianqing denied it. Report truthfully. Only in this way will they continue to send themselves to their deaths once they know of my whereabouts. Chapter 3662. Ah! The Scorching Sun sect master was dumbfounded. He stared at Ji Tianqing in a daze, not understanding what he meant. Even though he had witnessed and experienced Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength with his own eyes, he was still shocked. However, he still could not understand why Ji Tianqing would expose himself and attract the attention of countless factions and experts. Was this guy tired of living? It seemed like he had just said that they knew where he was, which was why they kept coming, to their deaths. The Scorching Sun sect master's body trembled when he thought of this, and unparalleled fear surged out of his heart. Heavens! He's actually so arrogant. At this moment, the Scorching Sun sect master suddenly understood Ji Tianqing's intentions. He was not seeking his own death. He wanted to lure all the factions and experts over and kill them all. Madman! This Long Tian was definitely a madman. The Scorching Sun sect master roared in his heart. His mind and body were filled with fear, and he trembled. Out of instinct, he wanted to shake his head and refuse. However, the bone-chilling killing intent from the pitch-black sword beside his neck cleared his mind. He knew very well what would happen if he didn't do as he was told. Thus, he took out a communication jade slip with trembling hands and sent a message to an elder of the 10,000 Demon Alliance to report the details. After sending the message, he seemed to feel that it was not enough. He took out a few more communication jade slips and sent messages to the other factions. This way, the news that he and the three elders had tried to kill Long Tian but were killed instead would quickly spread. Out of selfishness and ulterior motives, he even said in the communication jade slip that Long Tian had also been severely injured and was fleeing north. After he sent the message, Ji Tianqing's cold voice sounded in his ears again. You lied that I was severely injured and was fleeing north because you wanted those factions to hurry over so that I could kill them one by one. This way, many factions in the northwestern regions would be heavily injured. Even if you were killed and the Scorching Sun sect's strength was greatly weakened, at least we would have a chance to breathe and not be swallowed up by those factions. Hearing this cold and indifferent voice, the Setting Sun sect master's body stiffened and his expression became rather ugly. After a moment of silence, he smiled bitterly and said, as expected, I can't hide anything from you. But this won't do you any harm, and it won't affect your plan, will it? Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said expressionlessly, that's right. To be precise, what you are doing is equivalent to helping this prince. The Setting Sun sect master immediately became excited. Joy appeared on his face as he said with anticipation, Long Tian, I've already guessed your plan and believe in your strength. As long as you spare my life, I will cooperate fully with you. Whether it's acting or helping you deceive others, I can. Evidently, the cruel Sun sect master's desire to live was very strong. He would not let go of any chance of survival. However, Ji Tianqing decisively rejected him. No need. With that, he did not give the sect master of the cruel Sun sect a chance to speak. The sword of burial of heaven suddenly shone with resplendent light. Shwa! Blood splattered as the Setting Sun sect master's head flew into the sky. His eyes were still wide open. After destroying the Setting Sun sect master's body, the sword of burial of heaven unleashed another resplendent beam of sword light. Bang! The Setting Sun sect master's head exploded. His godhead also shattered and fell from the sky. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and sent out two beams of golden light that swept away the Setting Sun sect master's godhead fragments and interspatial ring. Then, he returned to the ceiling formation and took away the godhead fragments and interspatial rings of the three elders. After obtaining his spoils of war, he did not clean up the battlefield. Instead, he flew away on the sword of burial of heaven. He did not change his route and continued to advance north. He did not change his method of travel. The sword of burial of heaven still flew high in the sky. He entered the sword world again and returned to the distorted spacetime to deal with his spoils of war. In just 4 hours, he finished counting his spoils of war. The setting sun sect master and the 3 elders all had vast amounts of cultivation resources and treasures in their interspatial rings. Unfortunately, there was only one upper king level material and treasure. Even king grade pills, materials, and treasures were not many in number. There were only a few hundred of them. Fortunately, the 4 god kings had stored enough god stones and materials, which comforted Ji Tianqing. He couldn't help but grumble as he stored all of their belongings into his spatial ring. The setting sun sect master and the 3 elders have less than 1 trillion in total. That's too shabby. Will they be attracted by the 100 billion reward and come out to kill me? Although Ji Tianqing was a bit disappointed by the wealth and resources worth 1 trillion. However, the 4 godhead fragments could provide him with 100 years of cultivation, which was a bit comforting. After counting his spoils of war, he refined the 4 godhead fragments and absorbed their god power and divine Tao laws. He was full of anticipation for the forces that were about to swarm him. Originally, he didn't want to start a massacre. However, he was entangled with all kinds of grudges. Countless forces and experts were trying to kill him by any means necessary. Since that was the case, he could only turn trash into treasure and make the experts become his resources. The setting sun sect master's message quickly spread among the 10,000 demon alliance and countless forces. If the setting sun sect master had only sent a message to the 10,000 demon alliance, perhaps the 10,000 demon alliance would have kept it a secret and secretly sold this information to make a fortune. However, the setting sun sect master had sent a message to many forces, and the news quickly spread. The 10,000 demon alliance could not hide it even if they wanted to. In just one day, 70 to 80 forces and over 100 god kings knew about Long Tian's whereabouts and the news of the setting sun sect master and the others being killed. Although many people were shocked by Long Tian's strength and ability to kill the setting sun sect master and the 3 elders, they did not fear or retreat. However, they didn't shrink back because of this, and they became even more enthusiastic and excited instead. All of them rushed towards Freezing Pine region at their fastest speed to kill Long Tian. This was because many forces and experts believed that they were stronger than the setting sun sect. Long Tian could kill the 4 god kings of the setting sun sect, but he definitely could not kill them. Even those who were weaker than the setting sun sect rushed to the Freezing Pine territory to claim the credit. The setting sun sect master had clearly revealed a piece of information. Although the 3 elders were killed, he was definitely going to die as well. However, Long Tian's fate was also very bad. He was heavily injured and weak. This piece of information was extremely important. Many forces that were hesitating and watching in the dark joined the army to kill Long Tian. For a time, the entire northwestern region was in chaos. Over 100 forces and close to 200 god kings moved. Everyone rode their divine ships, mounts, and various divine artifacts to the Freezing Pine territory. They were afraid that others would beat them to it. Those who participated in the assassination thought about the reward worth hundreds of billions and the praise and favor of the 10,000 demon alliance. No one knew what awaited them. Chapter 3663. A day passed quickly. The Sword of Burial of Heaven was in the south of the Frost Pine region and was about to enter the Azure Pine Empire's territory. At this moment, Ji Tianqing had been cultivating in seclusion for 50 days in the distorted spacetime. He had refined and absorbed the divine fragment of the cruel sun sect master and the 3 elders. Not only had his strength increased, but he had also gained a few more divine Tao laws. After refining the divine fragment, he did not stop cultivating. He continued to nourish his divine Tao foundation. However, at this moment, the Sword of Burial of Heaven slowed down and stopped in the sky. It was surrounded by a sea of clouds and an endless plain below. In front of the Sword of Burial of Heaven, there were more than 20 divine lords in a battle formation. They were Kenshin soldiers and were filled with killing intent. At the front of the battle formation were 3 divine kings. They were all holding strange weapons and had cold smiles on their faces. It was clear that the first group of assassins had arrived after the cruel Sun sect master spread the news. Long Tian, stop hiding in the divine sword and come out to die. I don't know if I should call you arrogant or stupid. The news of your battle with the cruel Sun sect master has already spread throughout the regions. I didn't think that you would continue to use your sword without any disguise. Ha ha ha. Even if you are a noble member of the dragon race, even if you are powerful, it is useless now. You are already heavily injured. Stretch out your neck and die. The 3 godly kings of the monster clan of different races and appearances shouted loudly as they spread out and surrounded the Heaven Burier sword. At this moment, the sword of burial of heaven used its divine sense to awaken Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation without hesitation and left the distorted spacetime. It has only been a day, and someone has already come to die. It looks like I will be busy for a few days and won't have time to rest. As this thought flashed through his mind, Ji Tianqing appeared in the sky. He had a proud expression as he held the sword of burial of heaven. His body flashed with golden light as divine power gathered in his body. The 3 divine kings stared at him for a moment and were shocked to see that he was safe and sound. You are not injured. This is impossible. You were clearly heavily injured by the sect master of the cruel Sun sect and the others, and your strength is weak. He must be faking it, bluffing. Don't be afraid. The 3 divine kings were filled with vigilance and were secretly on guard. They were just about to report their identities and origins to further probe Ji Tianqing's background. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing didn't waste any time. He didn't even ask about their origins and backgrounds, and directly swung his sword to kill them. 10 directions absolute shadows. Dazzling white light burst out from his body as 6 clones appeared in an instant. They scattered in the sky and surrounded the god kings and god monarchs. Then, his original body and the 6 clones all wielded the sword of burial of heaven and used different divine abilities to surround and kill. Heaven Cleaving Sword. 7-Star Sword. Broken Moon Sword. Dragon Elephant Divine Fist. Sword Through Heaven. 10,000 swords returned to origin. In an instant, a dazzling rainbow light shone and enveloped an area of 10,000 miles. The crisscrossing sharp sword auras carried an unparalleled power and sword intent as they shot toward the 3 god kings and more than 20 god monarchs. A one-sided massacre with a great disparity in power began. Bang, bang, bang. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Ah. Run. Ah. In the next moment, a deafening explosion of thunder and miserable howls of despair erupted in the sky, resounding through the clouds. In just one breath, the 20 mid-level and high-level god monarchs were all killed and turned into ashes. 2 seconds later, the 3 god kings were killed by the 7 Ji Tianqing on the spot. All of them were crushed and their divine heads were shattered. The battle quickly ended. 10 seconds later, the deafening explosions and the light of the divine arts that covered the sky quickly dissipated. Everything returned to normal. Other than the ruins, there were also corpses, remains and blood in the ruins, which proved that a great battle had taken place here. The sword of burial of heaven continued to fly north at the same speed as before. Ji Tianqing returned to the distorted spacetime to count the spoils of war. 4 hours later, he finished counting the spoils of war. A 7th level high-level god king and 2 5th and 6th level mid-level god kings. The total wealth of the 3 of them is only about 600 billion. Why are they even poorer than the Broken Sun sect? Let's hope that the people who come to die later will be stronger and have stronger families. Ji Tianqing put away the spoils of war with disappointment and started to devour the divine head fragments. This time, it took less time to refine the divine head fragments. In merely half a month, he devoured 3 Godhead fragments and seized 3 types of divine Tao laws. At this time, the sword of burial of heaven stopped again. The voice of the burial of heaven sounded in his mind again. Someone else is coming. Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation with a trace of anticipation and left the distorted spacetime. A moment later, he appeared at the top of the sea of clouds, holding the sword of burial of heaven and looking at the people in front of him. There were more than 40 demon race experts in this group. Among them, there were 36 Divine Lord realm powerhouses. The other 5 were all Divine Kings. Divine Lord realm monsters were all disregarded by Ji Tianqing. His gaze fell on the 5 God Kings and sized them up expressionlessly. 2 high-level God Kings and 3 mid-level God Kings. Not bad, this is interesting. Ji Tianqing muttered to himself and thought, if these people are from the same faction, then this faction should be one of the top in the Starsource continent. Even if they are not as strong as the 10,000 Demon Alliance, they should at least be one of the top factions in the Northwest, one level higher than the Broken Sun sect. In fact, he had guessed correctly. The leader of the Moon Rhinoceros clan's God King stared coldly at Ji Tianqing. He said in a deep voice, Long Tian, your whereabouts have already been grasped by countless forces. Who knows how many God King experts are hunting you down? You are alone and heavily injured. You will die without a doubt. Don't make any meaningless struggles and resistance. Accept your death obediently. This credit belongs only to our Pill Sun Palace. This Moon Rhinoceros God King was the Vice Palace Master of the Pill Sun Palace and the second strongest person in the sect. His tone was full of confidence. The other 4 God Kings were also full of confidence. They looked at Ji Tianqing as if they were looking at a dead man. Ji Tianqing disdained to refute and was too lazy to explain anything. He did not waste any time and used his ultimate skill again to attack the people of the Pill Sun Palace. Absolute shadows of the 10 directions. With a cold shout, his body lit up with a dazzling white light and 6 doppelgangers appeared around him. In the next moment, he and the 6 doppelgangers waved the sword of burial of heaven and used different ultimate skills to attack. Heavenly Dragon Palm. Heavenly Dragon Slash. Blade of Spacetime. Sky-piercing Finger. Sword of Daytime. Suddenly, a dazzling 5-colored divine light illuminated the world. The destructive sword light and the divine power of hundreds of laws poured down on the people of the Pill Sun Palace. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3664. The 36 Divine Lords of the Pill Sun Palace were all battle-hardened elites. They immediately formed a battle formation and jointly released their divine power to form a huge defensive shield. The 5 Divine Lords were also calm as they activated their divine weapons and magic treasures. They used all kinds of divine powers and secret techniques to neutralize and block Ji Tianqing's attacks. Even so. However, all of their efforts were futile and useless. The defensive light shield formed by the 36 Sir Gods was instantly shattered into pieces by the sword lights that filled the sky. Then, they were also torn to pieces by the crisscrossing sword light. Blood splattered all over the sky. Then, Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers' divine powers collided with the divine powers of the 5 Divine Lords, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. In an instant, the divine powers of the 5 Divine Lords were shattered. Fragments of divine light and shockwaves spread out in all directions. The 5 Divine Lords were all lightly injured and were pushed back thousands of feet or dozens of miles. Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers quickly caught up and attacked with all their might. The 5 Divine Lords were forcefully separated and could not join forces to fight back. It was difficult for them to exert more combat strength. Originally, they had the advantage in numbers and were besieging Ji Tianqing alone. But now, it was Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers who were besieging them. Even more ironic was that even if the doppelgangers were only half as strong as Ji Tianqing, the 5 Divine Lords could not defeat them. After 2 or 3 moves, the 5 divine lords were defeated. They were killed one after another and their godheads were shattered. From the beginning of the battle, less than 20 breaths had passed, and it was over. The loud explosion reverberated in the sky. The dazzling divine light soon dissipated. The 6 doppelgangers quickly picked up the godhead fragments and interspatial rings of the 5 divine lords and returned to Ji Tianqing. Then, Ji Tianqing put away the spoils and the 6 doppelgangers. He returned to the sword world to deal with the spoils. The sword of burial of heaven continued its journey and flew north as usual. In the next 3 days, the situation was just as Ji Tianqing had expected. He was either fighting with others or sorting out the spoils of war. There was almost no time for him to cultivate. Almost every few hours, the sword of burial of heaven would be stopped by a group of assassins. Now, Ji Tianqing's whereabouts and route had been known by countless forces. When the assassins arrived at the frigid pine region, they would often be able to wait for the hare to come out of a tree stump. Moreover, Ji Tianqing had been using the sword of burial of heaven. He did not disguise or change. The heaven-burying sword's characteristics were very distinct. The divine king powerhouses of the various factions recognized it very easily. On the first day, Ji Tianqing encountered 4 groups of assassins. Every group had different numbers and strengths. The smaller groups had 2 or 3 god kings, while the larger groups had 6 or 7 god kings. The strongest ones were 7th stage realm upper level god kings. The divine lords of God of heaven divine lords were. Of course, divine lords below divine king realm, no matter how many there were, Ji Tianqing ignored them. Ji Tianqing's method of dealing with these assassins was also very simple and crude. After meeting, without saying a word, he directly created 6 clones and started killing. No group of assassins could withstand it. Not only could they not injure him at all, they did not even have the chance to escape. Just like this, Ji Tianqing killed his way to the north. On the second day, the divine lords of heaven divine lords who came to kill Ji Tianqing were clearly much smarter. Probably because those divine lords knew that Ji Tianqing killed many divine lords along the way, so they were very cautious. They would often set up traps, ambushes and god arrays in advance on Ji Tianqing's route, waiting for Ji Tianqing to walk right into the trap. The sword of burial of heaven would make a preliminary judgment on those traps and ambushes. If there was no danger, simple and crude traps and ambushes, it would directly ignore them. Once it encountered a more advanced, complicated and dangerous ambush, it would sense the danger in advance and take a detour. Those assassins were helpless and could only take the initiative to charge out and intercept the sword of burial of heaven. At this time, Ji Tianqing would appear again and kill them easily. Just like this, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed. After 3 days, the sword of burial of heaven left the winter pine region. At this time, Ji Tianqing had already killed 16 forces, about 70 divine kings and 400 divine lords. Those divine lords were negligible. He had already obtained more than 70 divine personas fragments, in addition to countless cultivation resources and treasures. With a rough estimate, the wealth of those 70 divine kings added up to more than 14 trillion. In addition to the cultivation resources and treasures in his interspatial ring, the total value was close to 20 trillion. Without a doubt, this was the moment in Ji Tianqing's life when he had the most resources and treasures. With such a large amount of cultivation resources, it was not only enough for him to recover to peak Divine King, but also for the people around him to cultivate to the Divine King realm. With such a large amount of cultivation resources, he could even establish a top sect and force. However, he knew that this was just the beginning. Currently, only a small portion of the divine kings he had killed were the territorial lords of the various regions and first-rate forces of the various regions. The true experts had yet to appear. Myriad Demon Alliance. It was the Myriad Demon Alliance that issued the bounty, but until now, no divine king from the Myriad Demon Alliance has taken action. I have already killed for 3 days, destroyed so many forces, and killed so many divine kings. The myriad demon alliance should have received the news and made a response. In the distorted spacetime, Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged under the bloody flame sacred tree and silently calculated. From the beginning, he did not take the divine kings of the ordinary forces and the territorial lords of the various regions seriously. His target had always been the experts of the myriad demon alliance. The current situation was just as Ji Tianqing expected. In 3 days, he had destroyed 16 forces and killed more than 70 divine kings in the freezing pine region. The news had already spread throughout the various regions in the northwest. For a time, the various regions in the northwest were in a state of panic. Countless territorial lords and forces were terrified. Many forces that were lying in ambush on Ji Tianqing's path were so frightened that they lost their spirit and fled. The Azure Snow region was to the north of the freezing pine region. Originally, there were more than 30 forces lying in ambush in various parts of the Azure Snow region, waiting to kill Ji Tianqing. However, after the news spread, more than half of them fled overnight. Only a dozen or so forces were unwilling to leave. When the various forces received the bounty, they were mentally prepared and knew that Long Tian was very strong. However, no one knew how strong he was. Now, they finally got the answer. He was an expert that they could not afford to offend. It was that simple. As for the dozen or so forces that were unwilling to leave, they were obviously divine kings with deep foundations and stronger strength. Among them, there were a dozen territorial lords and a few experts from top forces. They were unwilling to leave, but they would not act rashly. Forced by the situation, they actually contacted each other and discussed forming an alliance to deal with Long Tian together. There was also a rumor that the Myriad Demon Alliance was enraged and that a big shot had personally taken action to kill Long Tian. After all, the bounty was issued by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Long Tian was invincible and killed countless divine kings along the way, turning the various regions in the northwest upside down. The Myriad Demon Alliance had to take action to suppress him or their dignity would be lost. Chapter 3665. The news spread through various regions in the northwest, attracting the attention of many people. Countless forces and God King experts were looking forward to the battle between the experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance and Long Tian. Ji Tianqing, who was in the distorted spacetime, counting the spoils of war and refining the Godhead fragments, didn't know about this for now. He only felt that it was a little strange. Ever since he killed the previous group of people, no one had made a move to kill him for an entire day. He was used to having a fierce battle every few hours. Suddenly, it was quiet and smooth for an entire day. He was actually not used to it. The most important thing was, an entire day had passed in the outside world. He had already been in closed-door cultivation in the distorted spacetime for 50 days. In these 50 days, he refined 12 Godhead fragments. His strength continued to increase and the number of God Tao laws he had mastered increased. His strength had also increased by several times. My route hasn't changed and my whereabouts have been exposed to various forces. But all of a sudden, no one came to kill me. Ji Tianqing temporarily stopped cultivating and sat cross-legged under the blood flame sacred tree, deep in thought. Looks like I've successfully deterred the other forces by killing so many forces previously. Most of them are terrified and don't dare to make a move to kill me. Of course, there's another possibility, the real experts are about to make a move. The current situation was basically in line with Ji Tianqing's expectations. He could also guess that the people who would make a move to kill him would most likely be Thousand Demon Alliance experts. However, he wasn't afraid or worried at all. With his current strength, even if he met a 9th stage God King expert, he would have the ability to fight. Even if a peak God King made a move, as long as it wasn't an ambush or a siege, even if he couldn't win, he had the ability to protect himself. In one day at most, the 10,000 demon alliance will show up. After coming to this conclusion, he didn't think about this matter anymore and continued to refine the Godhead fragments. Green Snow Region, Wild Goose Mountain Range. It was the middle of winter. Heavy snow fluttered in the air and the sky was shrouded by endless lead clouds. The cold wind whistled between heaven and earth. The north wind was biting cold like a knife, turning water into ice. The sword of burial of heaven pierced through the boundless sea of clouds and was about to fly over Wild Goose Mountain Range. But at this moment, the burial of heaven suddenly detected several demon race experts standing in the sky 30,000 miles away. The person in the lead was a charming and captivating fox woman. She was about 7 feet tall and had a graceful figure. She wore a long silver palace dress and a complicated and exquisite divine crown and headdress. He had a snow-white fur cloak draped over his shoulders, and it emitted mysterious and reserved ripples of divine power. Even though this fox woman looked delicate and weak, she was extremely dignified. Behind him, 5 demon clan experts with different appearances stood in a straight line, appearing to be quite well-behaved and respectful. These 5 weirdly dressed demons had both males and females, but they were all divine king experts. Among them, there were 3 7th-stage realm high-level god kings and 2 6th-stage realm medium-level god kings. As for the female fox leader, her strength had already reached the peak of the 8th degree realm. These 6 god kings would definitely be overlords of a region no matter where they were placed in the Starsource continent. They were existences with awe-inspiring reputations. And at this moment, they stood quietly in the sky, staring coldly in front of them, watching the pitch-black divine sword flying towards them. After the burial of heaven observed the 6 divine king experts, it hesitated and slowed down its flying speed. It secretly probed in all directions, searching for any abnormalities between heaven and earth to see if there were any traps or ambushes. It couldn't be helped. The other party came with ill intentions, so it was obvious that they had made arrangements and ambushes in advance. No matter how strong Ji Tianqing was, he had to be careful when dealing with them. As the saying went, it was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to defend against a hidden arrow. Swoosh! When it was 20,000 miles away from the 6 divine kings, the burial of heaven decided to stop. Although it didn't discover any arrays or ambushes around the 6 divine kings, it couldn't be careless. It stopped in the sky and confronted the divine kings, and it sent a voice transmission to Ji Tianqing to wake him up. The person you're looking for is here. Ji Tianqing, who was cultivating in the distorted space, hurriedly stopped cultivating and left the distorted space. Swoosh! The next moment, he appeared high in the sky, holding the burial of heaven sword in his hand, looking at the sky in front of him. When he saw the appearances of the 6 god kings, he had a clear understanding of their strength and cultivation levels. Therefore, his lips curled into a cold smile, holding the burial of heaven sword in a reverse grip, he turned and flew towards the east. 20,000 miles away, the 6 divine kings were staring at him and sizing him up. When they saw him suddenly changing direction and taking a detour, everyone frowned and revealed a look of contempt. Humph! This kid knows his place, he even knows to avoid danger and take a detour. Rumor has it that he's very arrogant. Seeing him today, he might not be arrogant, but he's really vigilant and cunning. With Great Elder taking action personally, together with us, it's easy to kill him. Why would he need to set up traps and ambushes? This guy is really gauging the heart of a gentleman with his own mean measure. The divine kings began to discuss, their words not concealing their contempt at all. However, the leading Fox clan woman's expression did not change. She ordered in a deep voice, "Stop him." As soon as she finished speaking, she led the 5 God King experts and chased after Ji Tianqing at lightning speed. However, before she left, she glanced at a certain lump of lead cloud behind her. After she left with the 5 God Kings, a blurry figure actually flew out of the normal, leaden cloud. Swoosh! The phantom also swept across the sky as fast as lightning, chasing in the direction Ji Tianqing fled. Before long, the figures of many divine kings of the demon race appeared in the sea of clouds tens of thousands of miles away. They all flew towards the east. Ji Tianqing did not flee. He only flew east for 50,000 miles and stopped in the sky above wild returning mountain range. He stood proudly high in the sky, looking at the group of people chasing after him with a cold smile. In the blink of an eye, the Fox clan woman and the 5 divine kings caught up and stopped 50 kilometers away from him. The two parties faced each other high in the sky, their eyes cold. As for the blurry phantom, it quietly approached them and hid in a lump of lead cloud. In the sea of clouds in all directions, there were 3 groups of divine kings of the demon race. They all maintained a distance of 50,000 miles and hid in the sea of clouds to observe the situation. The Fox clan woman sized up Ji Tianqing and asked calmly, "You are Long Tian?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said, "That's right, it's me." "You are from the Myriad Demon Alliance. Introduce yourselves." The Fox clan woman frowned slightly and said indifferently, "Is there a need?" Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile. "You have waited for me for a long time. How would you know that I have been waiting for you as well? If your status is not high, I will not waste my breath on you." The Fox clan woman immediately understood what he meant and asked in return, "I am the Myriad Demon Alliance's Grand Elder, Wuxia. Are you looking for us because you have something to say to us?" Chapter 3666. Of course. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and looked straight at Wuxia. He asked expressionlessly, "I have no enmity with the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Why did you issue the bounty for the Taotai and Xiong cheese? Was it Tao Yongsheng or Xue Shang who issued the bounty? Or was it jointly issued by the two of them?" The 5 god kings behind Wuxia frowned when they heard that. Their faces became hostile. The groups of god kings hiding in the sea of clouds 50,000 kilometers away were all stunned and doubtful. Obviously, the 3 groups of god kings thought that Long Tian had offended the 10,000 Demon Alliance and issued the bounty. They did not expect that the 10,000 Demon Alliance had no enmity with Long Tian and only issued the bounty on behalf of the Taotai and Xiong cheese. Wuxia frowned and said coldly, "The 10,000 Demon Alliance oversees the northwest of the continent and commands the 32 regions. They are respected by billions of people. When the Taotai and Xiong cheese under their command were massacred and asked for help from the Alliance, we naturally would not sit by and do nothing. As for who issued the bounty, we promised to keep it a secret. Why would we reveal it to you?" Ji Tianqing smiled meaningfully and pointed at a certain lead cloud behind Wuxia. He said coldly, "Actually, even if you don't answer, I have an answer in my heart. He is already here, so why hide?" As he said this, everyone turned to look at the lead cloud. Suddenly, the lead cloud that looked normal shook a few times. Wuxia frowned and scolded him in her heart. "Idiot." After a while, the lead cloud surged and an illusory figure flew out and gradually became solid. Swoosh! This old and stooped figure landed beside Wuxia and the others. Ji Tianqing took a closer look and the sneer on his face deepened. "Tao Yongsheng, I haven't seen you for 20 days and you look so old and pathetic. Why? Not only did you issue the bounty, you also want to see me killed." Without a doubt, the white-haired and pathetic demon clan elder was the Taotai clan leader, Tao Yongsheng. After the battle at the Surging Sun Lake, Xue Shang fled back to the Nebula Cave and no longer accompanied him. He became a loner and did not return to the star-devouring paradise. He had been running around for the bounty. The 10,000 Demon Alliance did not accept empty promises or promissory notes. He could only meet with Great Elder Wuxia as soon as possible to fulfill the bounty that was worth 100 billion, as well as the reward for the 10,000 Demon Alliance. This had almost emptied his family fortune. After all, he only had this much wealth in his interspatial ring. He had been rushing all the way here and hadn't had the time to recuperate or adjust his breathing. Coupled with the unquenchable anger in his heart, he was in such an old and sorry state. After the matter of the bounty was settled, he still wanted to see Hu Xinyue kill Long Tian with his own eyes, so he followed Hu Xinyue to the Azure Snow Domain. Therefore, Ji Tianqing's guess was completely correct. Now that the enemy had met, his eyes were exceptionally red. Tao Yongxing's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Ji Tianqing and sneered, "Long Tian, no matter how cunning you are, you can't escape death. Although I can't do it myself, I want to see with my own eyes the scene of you being cut into pieces and your bones being ground to dust." Ji Tianqing looked at him with eyes full of pity and sneered, "Tao Yongxing, I have already spared your life, but I didn't expect you to still insist on dying. Xue Shang was tricked by you once, so he has learned his lesson and won't get involved in this matter anymore. However, you persevered and would rather let the Taotai clan die with you to take revenge. I didn't expect you to think of a way to kill with a borrowed knife in order to avoid the oath of the heavenly way. This is really too clumsy." Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Hu Xinyue, the 5 god kings, and the god kings hiding in the sea of clouds all looked at each other in confusion. Everyone was confused and did not understand what had happened between Ji Tianqing and Tao Yongxing previously. Hu Xinyue frowned and thought for a while, but she could roughly guess. She suddenly understood. No wonder Tao Yongxing hated Long Tian to the bone but did not dare to do it himself. It turned out that this old fellow was forced to swear the oath of the heavenly way. Thinking of this, Hu Xinyue looked at Ji Tianqing with more fear in her eyes. Tao Yongxing saw that everyone's expressions were strange and they were all whispering about him. He was instantly enraged. He pointed at Ji Tianqing and shouted angrily, "Long Tian, it's useless even if you have a glib tongue today. Elder Hu Xinyue will bring 3 heavenly kings and 2 inspectors to tear you into pieces. You can bully my clan, but do you think you can do whatever you want and be lawless? My Taotai clan can't deal with you, but there's still the 1,000 Demon Alliance." Tao Yongxing hated Ji Tianqing to the bone and did not want to waste time. He only wanted to see him killed as soon as possible. But this was only one of the reasons. Most importantly, he did not want to talk nonsense with Ji Tianqing anymore, in case Ji Tianqing revealed what had happened before. He would definitely lose face. Ji Tianqing saw that Tao Yongxing was so impatient and could not help but sneer. He pointed at him with his sword and said, "Tao Yongxing, since you have violated the oath and used such a despicable method to take revenge on me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Today, I will kill you first. Another day, I will destroy the star-devouring cave and make your Taotai clan extinct. This is the consequence of violating the oath of the heavenly way." Tao Yongxing was so angry that his face turned green, and killing intent surged in his eyes. But he did not dare to make a move. He could only suppress his anger and hurriedly send a voice transmission to Hu Xinyue to make a move. Hu Xinyue stared coldly at Ji Tianqing and shouted, "You are really shameless and lawless. This is the territory of the Myriad Demon Alliance. You are not allowed to be presumptuous." After saying that, a divine light flashed in her right hand, and she took out her natal weapon. It was a purple gold whip that was studded with gems and divine jades. The other 3 heavenly kings and supervisors also took out their weapons. Divine power surged in their bodies, and they were ready to attack. Ji Tianqing glanced at them and looked at the sea of clouds in the distance. He sneered and said, "Since you want to make a move, don't be so secretive. Let those who are lying in ambush come together." Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings were stunned for a moment, and they sneered disdainfully. "Ha! My 5 comrades and I are enough to kill you. Why do we need others to do it? Long Tian, who do you think you are? Do you think you are worthy of us setting up an ambush? Those are the divine kings from the various regions. They were indeed prepared to kill you. But now that we are here, they can only hide and watch the show. Ji Tianqing finally understood that the three groups of divine kings were not from the myriad demon alliance. He shook his head and said in a regretful tone, "It's a pity that those people aren't your accomplices. This king is very curious, where did you get the courage to kill this king with just 6 people?" Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings were instantly enraged, and their bodies were filled with killing intent. Arrogant and ignorant. Kid, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Die. Everyone shouted angrily and waved their divine weapons. They used their trump cards and attacked Ji Tianqing together. Chapter 36-67. Although Hu Xinyue, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors did not seem to be very powerful. But Ji Tianqing had indeed underestimated them. The moment they attacked, they used all kinds of divine skills and unleashed a powerful combat power. The 2 supervisors of the 6th sky of King God realm obviously had a joint attack. The divine abilities and ultimate skills that the 2 of them executed could actually be combined into one, causing the power to increase by 3 times. It was comparable to a 7th degree realm high divine king. The 3 heavenly kings of the Thousand Demon League had their own strengths. They had mastered more than 600 divine Tao laws. The sword shadows, giant beasts and light blades that they unleashed carried more than 100 divine Tao laws, causing the space within a radius of 20,000 miles to become chaotic. As for Hu Xinyue, she was indeed the great elder of the Thousand Demon League. Although she was only at the 8th layer divine king realm, her combat power was comparable to that of a 9th layer expert. She was not weaker than Tao Yongsheng and Xueshang. She used her left hand to control the space law and sealed the space within a radius of 20,000 miles. She froze the space and made it difficult for Ji Tianqing to move. She waved the purple gold whip in her right hand and millions of starlight rays fell like a meteor shower, covering the land. An incomparably terrifying pressure ruthlessly suppressed Ji Tianqing. He could not move and his divine power was blocked. His combat power was greatly reduced. Without a doubt, most 9th layer divine king realm experts could not resist the joint attack of Hu Xinyue and the others. For example, if Tao Yongsheng and Xueshang were in Ji Tianqing's place, they would be injured immediately. This was the source of Hu Xinyue and the others' confidence. But unfortunately, their opponent was Ji Tianqing. He was neither a 9th stage God King nor a monster in the 9th stage of the God King realm. He was a peerless genius who could not be judged by common sense. When the sky was filled with divine spells, the endless sword lights and the rain of stars were about to drown Ji Tianqing, he suddenly stopped. He did not draw his sword, nor did he use any technique to block or dodge. Under Tao Yongsheng's anxious and expectant gaze, his body flashed with white light and he disappeared into thin air. Swoosh! In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. Even though his aura was still present, the spiritual senses of many God King experts were unable to find any traces of him even after searching the surrounding 50,000 li. In fact, it was not limited to a radius of 100,000 miles. Even if it was a radius of 200,000 miles, the result would be the same. Rumble. Bang 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 bang. The divine light shadows that blotted out the sky and the billions of starlight raindrops all missed their target and hit the wild returning mountain range below. Along with an earth-shaking, deafening boom, everything within a radius of 20,000 miles was turned into ruins, with dust flying in all directions. Hundreds of thousands of peaks disappeared. Mountains, valleys, and rivers were all razed to the ground. Destructive shockwaves spread out in all directions, covering a radius of 50,000 miles. The earth trembled violently for a long time. Around the 20,000 ruins, numerous cracks appeared. Such terrifying destructive power left the 3 groups of God Kings watching the battle secretly speechless. However, everyone's attention was not on this. Hu Xinyue, the 5 God Kings, Tao Yongsheng, and the others all frowned as they searched around. Everyone stopped attacking and used all kinds of divine abilities to search for Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. That's strange. Where did that guy hide? Despicable coward. He didn't dare to fight and hid like a coward. Even if I have to dig 30,000 feet into the ground, I will find him. He must have used his spatial powers to hide in an alternate dimension. The God Kings discussed in low voices and were rather angry. Especially Tao Yongsheng, who was the most angry and anxious. Damn bastard. Wasn't he very arrogant just now? Why did he hide in the blink of an eye? Great Elder, I'll have to trouble everyone to search carefully. You must find him and absolutely cannot let him escape. He also did not understand what method Ji Tianqing used to be able to disappear without a trace. However, he was most worried that Ji Tianqing would take the opportunity to escape. In that case, it would be difficult to kill him again. In just 2 short breaths, everyone used their skills to search a radius of 50,000 miles. The 3 heavenly kings even searched 6 levels of alternate dimensions. However, it was a pity that they did not find anything. Hu Xinyue decisively ordered and said coldly, "This person is cunning. He will definitely take the opportunity to escape." Everyone, spread out immediately in search of a radius of 50,000 miles repeatedly. Even a peak God King's divine sense could only cover a radius of 50,000 miles. This was the limit of a God King expert. Therefore, Hu Xinyue fixed the search radius to 50,000 miles. She believed that even if Ji Tianqing had great skills, he would not be able to teleport 50,000 miles and escape from this area. Yes. The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors acknowledged the order and hurriedly spread out with their weapons to search. Tao Yongsheng was the most anxious. He even ignored the heavenly Tao oath and joined the search. Anyway, I won't attack him. I'm just searching for his traces. It shouldn't be considered as breaking the oath. Perhaps the heavenly Tao won't nitpick. He comforted himself in his heart. Soon, everyone spread out and searched in different directions. The 3 groups of God Kings who were watching the battle in the dark were afraid of being implicated. They hurriedly retreated further away. 30 breaths later. Tao Yongsheng searched 30,000 miles and was getting further and further away from Hu Xinyue and the rest. The closest supervisor to him was 60,000 miles away. At this moment, Ji Tianqing, who had transformed into heaven and earth, suddenly appeared. Swoosh! With a slight spatial fluctuation, he appeared behind Tao Yongsheng and was less than 10,000 feet away. Absolute shadows of 10 directions. In the next moment, he split into 7 and surrounded Tao Yongsheng and launched an attack. Tao Yongsheng was indeed a 9th stage God King expert. His divine sense was extremely sharp. When Ji Tianqing appeared, he sensed that something was amiss. But when he turned back to look, he saw 7 identical long Tians. He was instantly dumbfounded. Although he was only stunned for 1/3 of an instant, he regained his senses and immediately took out the primordial chaos bell to protect himself. But it was a pity that he was too late. When top experts fought, victory was decided in an instant. Heaven-piercing sword. Blade of spacetime. Sword of destruction. Sword breaking 9 heavens. Sword of daytime. Heaven-piercing finger. Ji Tianqing's original body and 6 doppelgangers respectively executed different remarkable skills and attacked Tao Yongsheng from all directions. Even when the primordial chaos bell appeared and floated above his head, it lit up with dark red blood light and formed a shield to help Tao Yongsheng block the sword light and fist radiance. But he was still hit by 3 swords and a heaven-piercing finger. One of the swords cut off his left leg. The second sword cut off his right arm. The third sword left a long and narrow wound on his back and blood gushed out. As for the heaven-piercing finger, it accurately pierced his left eye and pierced through his head. Bam bam bam. Puff, ah ah. A series of muffled sounds, mixed with the sound of God's blood splattering in Tao Yongsheng's shrill screams, resounded in the sky. Soon, the God King experts in all directions were alarmed and their faces were filled with fear. Chapter 36-68. Hu Xinyue and the other God Kings were focused on searching for Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. Out of the blue, Ji Tianqing suddenly appeared. He actually took the initiative to appear and sneak an attack on the most powerful 9th stage realm God King, Tao Yongsheng. This was completely out of everyone's expectations and caught them off guard. Especially the two weakest patrol envoys, who were only mid-level divine kings, secretly let out a sigh of relief. According to conventional thinking, everyone knew that Ji Tianqing only had two choices for hiding. He could either take the opportunity to escape or wait for an opportunity to sneak an attack. If he were to assassinate, he would definitely kill the weakest person first to reduce the number of opponents and effectively reduce the threat. The two inspectors, Hu Xinyue and the three heavenly kings understood this logic, and so did Tao Yongsheng. Therefore, when everyone was searching everywhere, Hu Xinyue and the three heavenly kings were secretly paying attention to the two inspectors to prevent Ji Tianqing from sneaking an attack. As for Tao Yongsheng, he was ignored by everyone. But the truth was exactly the opposite of everyone's expectations. Ji Tianqing deliberately chose Tao Yongsheng, the toughest bone to chew. But when everyone thought about it, this seemed to be reasonable. After all, the person who issued the bounty order was Tao Yongsheng. Ji Tianqing had a blood feud with him, but he had never met the 6 experts from the Thousand Demon Alliance. When Hu Xinyue and the 5 God Kings heard Tao Yongsheng's miserable cry, they flew towards him and saw the tragic scene of Tao Yongsheng being severely injured. Even though the primordial chaos bell had blocked almost half of the attack, he was still stabbed several times and his robe was stained with blood. Not to mention the sword wounds on his body, just his empty and bleeding left eye was a ghastly sight and extremely terrifying. Tao Yongsheng's left hand formed a seal and controlled the primordial chaos bell to activate its defensive power to the maximum. His right hand's left eye was bleeding profusely and he let out a heart-wrenching cry as his entire body trembled. The power of the heaven-piercing finger not only pierced through his left eye, it also shook his sea of consciousness, causing him to feel dizzy and his consciousness to become blurry. Even his godhead was greatly affected, and his god force was in chaos. More importantly, he had been poisoned by Ji Tianqing's innate fiend soul transference poison and had not had the time to circulate his internal energy to expel the poison. Even though he had been using his profound skills to suppress the poison and prevent it from exploding, he was still unable to control it. However, at this moment, after he was severely injured, his divine power was in chaos. The poison took the opportunity to erupt and spread throughout his body. As a result, his 9th level divine king realm strength was reduced by half. Long Tian. You despicable beast, you will die a horrible death. Hiding behind the protective shield of the bell, Tao Yongsheng glared at Ji Tianqing, who was thousands of feet away, and cursed with a venomous tone. Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "The one who will die a horrible death is you." Tao Yongsheng sneered disdainfully, "You want to kill me? Dream on. With the primordial chaos bell in hand, I am invincible. 20 days ago, during the battle at Gushing Sun Lake, you were unable to kill me. It's the same today." Although he was severely injured, his life was saved and he could slowly recuperate in the future. However, the corners of Ji Tianqing's mouth curled into a mocking sneer as he said, "Can't kill you? Ha ha. Look behind you." Hearing this, Tao Yongsheng's heart skipped a beat and he subconsciously turned his head to look behind him. He saw that there were 5 identical Ji Tianqing in the blood-red light shield behind him. 4 of them were doppelgangers and the last one was his real body. Apparently, he had taken advantage of the gap when Tao Yongsheng had taken out the primordial chaos bell to sneak into the shield. This is impossible. Tao Yongsheng's face changed dramatically and he widened his eyes in shock. He let out a furious roar. At the same time, Ji Tianqing and the four doppelgangers waved their swords at the same time and used their unique skills to attack Tao Yongsheng. Blade of Spacetime. Sword of Daytime. Sword of Nine Heavens. Sword of Destruction. Finger of Destruction. All kinds of divine abilities and divine powers with more than 300 types of laws turned into dazzling lights and shadows that drowned Tao Yongsheng in an instant. Previously, Tao Yongsheng had the primordial chaos bell to block all kinds of divine abilities and killer moves for him, and he was naturally safe. But now, he and Ji Tianqing were both inside the primordial chaos bell's light shield. The primordial chaos bell could not block the attacks for him and could not unleash its power. He could only activate the divine bell with all his might and release a terrifying power to suppress Ji Tianqing and the four doppelgangers. This move was indeed effective. The primordial chaos bell released a vast and irresistible divine power that covered the sky and the earth and suppressed Ji Tianqing and his doppelgangers. Even their divine abilities and consummate skills were trembling in fear. Their speed slowed down and their power weakened a little. However, it only weakened the power and could not neutralize the attacks of Ji Tianqing and his doppelgangers. Tao Yongsheng was severely injured and he was inside the shield. He could not dodge at all and was immediately hit by the sword light. Bam! 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 Following a series of muffled sounds, Tao Yongsheng was hit by the sword light. His body trembled and he was sent flying in all directions. Blood splattered all over his body. Even though he avoided his vital parts in time, the sword light and the sky-piercing finger still left a few bloody holes on his body. The splattered blood dyed his clothes, hair, and face red, turning him into a bloody man. His strength weakened further and the innate demon soul transference poison in his body erupted violently again, causing his blood and divine power to burn. Ah! His entire body burned with bloody flames and his divine power leaked out crazily. Flaming blood spurted out of his 7 orifices and he let out a muffled scream. This was definitely the most dangerous and embarrassing moment he had ever been in his entire life. Swoosh! 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 Ji Tianqing remained silent and took the opportunity to attack with his 4 doppelgangers. He and his doppelgangers were suppressed by the primordial chaos bell's vast divine power, slowing down their speed and greatly reducing their combat power. However, in order to kill Tao Yongsheng as soon as possible, he did not hesitate to use his trump card. Celestial Dragon Tyrant Body. He roared angrily and his entire body bloomed with golden light. His entire body turned into a dragon. Golden light flashed and he turned into a 300-meter-tall golden armored giant. His entire body was covered with dragon scales and a pair of dark golden dragon wings grew out of his back. Unfortunately, his main body used the celestial dragon tyrant body and his strength increased by 6 times, but his 4 doppelgangers did not change. Die! Ji Tianqing roared angrily and held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands. He activated the 330 types of divine power and slashed out the strongest sword of destruction. Swoosh! The 300-meter-long dazzling golden sword was more dazzling than the sun. It slashed down from the sky toward Tao Yongsheng. Layers of divine runes of divine power enveloped Tao Yongsheng like invisible waves and sealed him in place. He could not dodge. In today's battle, in order to kill Tao Yongsheng, this was the 3rd time he used the power of the world. After this, he would have to replenish the 5 elements world with resources worth hundreds of billions to make up for it. Chapter 3669. Kaboom! The dazzling giant sword slashed Tao Yongsheng with earth-shattering power. The 4 doppelgangers also used all kinds of divine skills to attack him at the same time. Following a crisp explosion, Tao Yongsheng's protective divine light and armor both collapsed and shattered into pieces, filling the sky with debris. Hu Xinyue, the 3 heavenly kings, and the 2 inspectors were rushing over as fast as they could. However, they were still tens of thousands of miles away from the primordial chaos bell. They could only vaguely see with their divine senses that Tao Yongxing was, shattered into pieces under the dazzling golden sword. It was like a porcelain vase that had been smashed by a hammer, shattering into pieces and splashing out countless fragments. Tao Yongxing's divine body was destroyed by Ji Tianqing just like that. Moreover, it was dismembered into thousands of pieces under the protection of the primordial chaos bell, the Tao Tai clan's divine weapon. A godhead that was wrapped in dark blue flames and blood-red flames flew out of the shattered pieces and rushed into the sky. Obviously, Tao Yongxing's godhead was corroded by poison and was very weak. He could no longer protect himself. At this moment, he only wanted to escape into the primordial chaos bell and use it to escape this place. Killing Ji Tianqing and taking revenge would be left to Hu Xinyue and the experts of the 10,000 Demon League. Ha! Since I have decided to kill you, why would I give you a chance to live? Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile. He looked up at the godhead that was soaring into the sky. He reached out with his giant golden dragon claw and grabbed at the godhead. Kaboom! Instantly, with the godhead as the center, the space within a radius of 10,000 feet was crushed by him. The space shattered and countless pitch-black void cracks appeared and intertwined. Tao Yongxing's godhead floated in the void cracks and could be swept away by the void storm at any time. Once he fell into the void, he would drift to an unknown place. Of course, with his strength of the ninth heaven king god realm, even if he was exiled into the void, he might not die. The chances of him surviving were very high. Therefore, Ji Tianqing would never let him enter the void. Swoosh! Swoosh! His four doppelgangers had long been ready to charge into the fragmented chaotic space. In the crisscrossing cracks in the void, the four clones intercepted Tao Yongxing's godhead, captured it, and brought it back to Ji Tianqing. The cracks in the void quickly healed under the will of the heavenly Tao. On the other hand, Tao Yongxing's godhead was trapped by the two clones' golden light spheres and was struggling madly. As for the primordial chaos bell floating high in the sky, it was also a spiritual treasure. Sensing that its master had fallen into a desperate situation and was on the verge of death, the primordial chaos bell actually blossomed with bloody light and released a world-destroying pressure to destroy Ji Tianqing and his avatar. Seeing this, the four clones joined hands to cast a spell, intending to form a formation to resist the suppression of the divine bell. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing's reaction was exceptionally ruthless and decisive. Without hesitation, he brandished the sword of burial of heaven and shattered the golden ball of light, as well as the godhead in the ball of light. Tao Yongxing didn't even have time to beg for mercy or cry out before he was killed just like that. Ka-cha! With a crisp cracking sound, the godhead turned into more than 20 pieces and scattered in the sky. With Tao Yongxing's death, the connection between him and the primordial chaos bell was severed and disappeared. Naturally, the primordial chaos bell also became an object without an owner. It immediately regained its calm and its divine light retracted. The terrifying divine power descending from the sky also stopped abruptly and slowly dissipated. It was over. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and kept the pieces of Tao Yongxing's godhead. Then, he used a suction technique to shrink the primordial chaos bell 100 times and kept it in his sleeve. Of course, Tao Yongxing's interspatial ring was also picked up by one of his clones and handed to him. At this moment, Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings had just crossed the sky and arrived before him. Ji Tianqing placed his left hand behind his back and held the sword of burial of heaven in his right hand. He stood in the sky with a proud expression and looked at the people flying towards him. The 6 clones spread out and formed a fan-shaped defensive line behind him. They all held their swords and looked at Hu Xinyue and the others. A mysterious, majestic and domineering aura permeated the sky. It made the divine kings who were watching the battle in secret to be filled with fear and respect. As for Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings, they were originally filled with anger and murderous intent as they rushed over. When they saw Ji Tianqing's stance, they rushed 100 miles away and stopped in the sky. The 6 of them did not dare to act rashly. They stared at Ji Tianqing solemnly and vigilantly. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked Hu Xinyue, Tao Yongsheng, who entrusted you to issue the bounty, is already dead. Do you still want to continue besieging me? Hearing this, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys averted their eyes and each had their own thoughts. They had witnessed Ji Tianqing's terrifying power and means with their own eyes. Even Tao Yongsheng, who was in the 9th realm and had the protection of the primordial chaos bell, was easily killed by him. It was conceivable that if they continued to fight, they would not be Ji Tianqing's match and would probably be buried here. If it was possible, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys did not want to fight anymore. Unexpectedly, Hu Xinyue stared coldly at Ji Tianqing and said expressionlessly, You killed Tao Yongsheng and that's a grudge between you and him. But our league has already accepted Tao Yongsheng's money and issued the bounty, so naturally we have to complete the mission. The league has its own rules. Ji Tianqing sneered disdainfully and said, So, you are the same as Tao Yongsheng. You are all idiots who give up your lives for hypocritical dignity. The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys frowned and were about to argue with him. However, Hu Xinyue was expressionless and said firmly, I have said before, this has nothing to do with dignity, it's just the rules. If the rules are broken, how can the league convince the public? Ha ha ha. Ji Tianqing sneered again and said indifferently, Since you insist on seeking death, I have no other choice but to fulfill your wishes. The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys frowned and muttered to themselves, Nonsense. You have a second choice. You can run. As long as you run with all your might, we will definitely not be able to catch up with you. Then we don't have to risk our lives. Even if we can catch up with you, we won't do our best. Of course, they only thought about it in their hearts and did not dare to say it out loud. How shameful. Come on, let's fight together. There's no need to queue up if you want to die. Ji Tianqing said with a smile as he formed a sword seal with his left hand and pointed the sword at the ground with his right hand. Behind him, the 6 doppelgangers were also accumulating their divine power and were ready to attack. Hu Xinyue frowned and asked, Why don't you continue to hide and attack? Are you going to fight directly? Ji Tianqing smiled and said, Hiding and attacking secretly is just to kill Tao Yongsheng as soon as possible. That old man has the primordial chaos bell to protect him. It's hard to kill him without using some tricks. As for you guys, why do you have to attack secretly? Fighting directly is like chopping vegetables. Chapter 36-70. Arrogant and ignorant. No matter how good Hu Xinyue's self-control was, she was still infuriated by Ji Tianqing. She shouted and her body lit up with divine light. She unleashed all her power and attacked Ji Tianqing with her purple golden whip. The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors also roared in unison, brandishing their swords and sabers as they attacked from all sides. Ji Tianqing stood still and ignored the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors. He only stared coldly at Hu Xinyue. Swish! Swish! Meanwhile, the 6 clones behind him shot out with lightning-like speed, swinging their swords at the 5 god kings. Bam! 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 In the next moment, the 5 divine kings and the 6 clones faced the attacks head-on. They used all kinds of divine powers and clashed with each other. Following a deafening explosion, the divine light that covered the sky also collapsed and shattered, splashing out endless fragments of divine light. The destructive shockwave carried the divine light fragments and turned into a 5-colored flood. It spread in all directions and covered a radius of 80,000 miles. The surrounding sea of clouds was instantly swept away. The 3 divine kings who were hiding in the sea of clouds were also pushed back by the violent shockwave. They retreated further away in fear. At this moment, Ji Tianqing and Hu Xinyue flew into the sky and started to fight. Heavenly Fox Moon Slash. Hu Xinyue held her purple golden whip and used her divine body and whip to form a crescent that was 10,000 feet long. She slashed towards Ji Tianqing like a curved blade. As the saber slashed down, a huge ravine appeared in the blue sky, and a wide spatial rift appeared. Before the blade radiance arrived, more than 200 types of laws and divine powers had already sealed a radius of 1,000 miles and suppressed Ji Tianqing. In the layers of laws and divine patterns, there were all kinds of illusory scenes. There was the rise and fall of the sun and the moon, the movement of the stars, the transformation of the world, wind, frost, rain and snow. Even though Ji Tianqing was experienced, he had to admit that Hu Xinyue's strength was far beyond the divine kings of the same level. It was really rare. If they were to fight head-on, Hu Xinyue might not necessarily lose to Tao Yongsheng at his peak. She was worthy of being called a formidable opponent. Rising Sword. Ji Tianqing, who seemed to be sealed and unable to move, suddenly swung his sword to meet the attack when the heavenly fox falling moon slash descended on his head. His posture was relaxed, and the way he swung his sword was natural and unrestrained. He was like a drifting cloud, a gentle breeze blew, and stars revolved, and he was extremely conforming with the grand Tao of the heavens and the earth. This sword strike had already reached a perfect state of being perfectly round and returning to its original state. It looked like a casual strike, but it contained the unfathomable sword Tao true intent, as well as the sword intent that could cut through the stars and sever the sky. Boom! In the next moment, the ethereal sword that was like a floating cloud strangely slashed the crescent-shaped saber light, causing a loud and clear sound to ring out. The ethereal sword was retracted right after it was released. That crescent moon-like blade light was broken into pieces and disintegrated on the spot. Walala, fragments of moonlight sprinkled down from the sky like a rain of stars. Hu Xinyue, who was holding the purple gold whip, was also knocked out of her true form. She spat out blood as she flew back. Swoosh! She rolled and flew 100 miles before she managed to dissipate the terrifying impact and stabilized her body. Just as she was about to circulate her energy to suppress her injuries, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and her face became even paler. What a mysterious sword skill, what a domineering sword intent. She bent her body and lifted her sleeve to wipe away the blood at the corner of her mouth. She stared at Ji Tianqing and could not help but exclaim softly. I have seen at least 80 sword Tao divine kings in my life, if not 100. And your sword Tao is one of a kind, and can be said to be the best. Hu Xinyue said in a low voice. She secretly circulated her energy to suppress her injuries and get rid of the remaining sword intent in her body. That wisp of formless sword intent was too domineering. If she did not get rid of it in time, it would definitely destroy her internal organs and heart meridians. Ji Tianqing did not chase after her. He held his sword and looked at her, saying, You are not bad too. You should have broken through to the 9th stage long ago, but you have been suppressing yourself at the 8th stage. I believe you have other motives, right? Hu Xinyue's lips curled up and sneered, ha 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 ha. Do you think I am praising you? I only want to say that since you are from the Dragon Clan, you should be more proficient in the Dragon Clan's remarkable skills. How can you have such profound sword Tao cultivation? There is a problem with your identity. It was true that the orthodox Dragon Clan's divine kings not only had strong physical bodies, their divine power was also vast and boundless. When the Dragon Clan's divine kings fought, they were either invincible in close combat, crushing their opponents, or they were able to control the heaven and earth with their remarkable skills. The Dragon Clan would not attach importance to weapons such as sabers, spears, swords and halberds, and would not persist in cultivating them. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and a cold glint flashed past his eyes. He sneered, if you only have this bit of ability, then your words should become your last words. Apparently, he avoided answering Hu Xinyue's question to prevent himself from being exposed. Who exactly are you? Hu Xinyue was extremely persistent. She stared at him angrily and shouted at the top of her lungs. Ji Tianqing kept silent. In a flash, he teleported in front of her and waved his sword swiftly. Sword of Daytime. The pitch-black heaven barrier sword released a bit of cold star, and then no more divine light shone. However, that cold star that was extremely condensed instantly expanded 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times. In an instant, it became a dazzling golden light that was like the sun and was about to swallow Hu Xinyue. At the moment of life and death, Hu Xinyue's pupils contracted and her nerves tensed. Without any hesitation, she removed the seal and revealed her demonic beast form. Roar! As a dull and angry demonic beast roar sounded, her body bloomed with bright moonlight. She instantly turned into a snow-white demonic fox that was thousands of feet long and as huge as a mountain. This extremely beautiful and elegant demonic fox was not a nine-tailed demonic fox with a noble bloodline. She actually had 12 fluffy, snow-white tails. When the Sword of Daytime was about to swallow her, her 12 tails bloomed with bright moonlight and formed a moonlight barrier in front of her. This was the heavenly moon barrier that she had used all her power to form. It was indestructible. Kaboom! In the next moment, the Sword of Daytime hit the heavenly moon barrier hard and a shattering sound resounded through the sky. The heavenly moon barrier that Hu Xinyue relied on to protect her life was actually covered with dense cracks. It collapsed instantly and exploded into billions of pieces of moonlight. The Sword of Daytime broke the moonlight barrier and was about to kill her on the spot. Even if she could save her life, her body would definitely be severely injured or even destroyed. But what she didn't expect was that the Daylight Sword, which could destroy heaven and earth, instantly disappeared. Swoosh! In the next moment, Ji Tianqing, who was hundreds of miles away, appeared in front of her out of thin air. He was only 1,000 feet away from her. Although Ji Tianqing had returned to his normal size and was only 8 feet tall. She was a demonic fox that was thousands of feet long and as huge as a mountain. The difference in size between the two was like a sesame seed and a watermelon. However, Ji Tianqing's aura completely suppressed her. Her body trembled slightly and she was stunned. Her dark blue eyes stared at Ji Tianqing and revealed a puzzled look. Why didn't you kill me? Obviously, Ji Tianqing had shown mercy at the critical moment. Chapter 3671. The Daylight Sword had already slashed through Hu Xinyue's sky-moon barrier. If Ji Tianqing had not stopped in time, she would have been slashed by the Daylight Sword. Even if she would not be killed, she would inevitably be seriously injured. Therefore, she stared at Ji Tianqing with a face full of confusion. You don't dare to kill me? Aren't you very arrogant and conceited? Why are you afraid of the Thousand Demon Alliance? Hu Xinyue frowned and asked in a low voice. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and laughed lightly. Do you think I will be afraid of the Thousand Demon Alliance? Hu Xinyue remained silent. She looked around and her pupils constricted. She saw that 4 of the 3 heavenly kings and 2 patrol envoys had been killed by Ji Tianqing's doppelgangers. The remaining 2 heavenly kings were also covered in blood and were seriously injured. They were surrounded by 6 doppelgangers and there were a few divine swords on their necks. The previously intense battle had long since ended, and the 2 heavenly kings had also become captives. Hu Xinyue felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her body was cold and her heart was filled with fear. She then realized how powerful Ji Tianqing was. He was able to fight against 6 and win in such a short period of time. Such strength was something that many 9th stage realm god kings could not hope to catch up to. At this moment, Ji Tianqing kept the burial of heaven and held it behind his back. He stared at Hu Xinyue and sized her up. After a moment, he asked a question that did not make any sense. You are a 12-tailed sky fox. Hu Xinyue was stunned and asked in surprise, You the world only knows about the nine-tailed demon fox, moon fox, ice fox and fire fox. How do you know about the sky fox? The demon clan's fox clan was divided into several bloodlines. The most common ones were the ice fox and fire fox, followed by the moon fox and the nine-tailed demon fox. But very few people knew that the sky fox bloodline was the most powerful and honorable in the fox clan, and they were the least in number. Because the sky fox was the absolute royal family of the fox clan. Even if it was Hu Xinyue, the world only thought of her as moon fox. Ji Tianqing looked at Hu Xinyue and said with a playful smile, "If I'm not wrong, the heavenly fox should be one of the top and rare bloodlines of the fox clan. That's why no one knows about it." Hu Xinyue frowned and asked in a low voice, "So what? Since you know so much about the heavenly fox, have you seen one before?" "Of course." Ji Tianqing nodded. Hu Xinyue's eyes widened. Surprise and excitement flashed in her eyes. She asked subconsciously, "Where have you seen him? Where is she?" Ji Tianqing noticed the subtle changes in her expression. He thought for a moment and asked, "Tell me the details and stories of the heavenly fox clan. If I'm satisfied, I might tell you the answer." "This." Hu Xinyue hesitated. After a moment of silence, she said in a low voice, "The heavenly fox clan is a branch of the fox clan." "What is the story?" "Ha ha ha." Ji Tianqing sneered and said, "In that case, we have nothing to talk about." As he spoke, he was about to kill Hu Xinyue with the sword of burial of heaven. The 6 doppelgangers also burst out with strong killing intent. They wanted to kill the 2 heavenly kings on the spot. Hu Xinyue suddenly became anxious. She growled in a hoarse voice, "Wait." Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers stopped at the same time. He stared at Hu Xinyue and asked, "What's wrong? Have you changed your mind?" Hu Xinyue endured her injuries and humiliation. She closed her eyes and nodded. "We have lost to you. The mission has failed. It's over. This is not the place to talk. Let's go somewhere else. Then I can tell you about the heavenly fox clan." Ji Tianqing looked at the sky around him. His divine sense detected that the 3 groups of divine kings were still hiding 70,000 miles away. So, he nodded and agreed. Swoosh! The next moment, the 6 doppelgangers followed behind him with the 2 heavenly kings. They climbed onto Hu Xinyue's back together. Hu Xinyue also shook her 12 tails and stepped across the sky. She left as fast as lightning. Swoosh! In just 10 breaths, Hu Xinyue was tens of thousands of miles away from the battlefield. She quickly rushed to the north. At this time, the 3 groups of divine kings who were hiding in the clouds to watch the battle appeared one after another. Everyone looked in the direction where Hu Xinyue went. They were shocked and frightened. They whispered to each other, "It's too scary. If I didn't see this battle with my own eyes, who would have thought that Long Tian was so powerful? No wonder the dozens of forces who went to kill him were all killed. It's really scary just thinking about it. Fortunately, we stopped in time and didn't attack blindly. Otherwise, we would have been turned into ashes." Even the great elder of the Demon Alliance and the 3 heavenly kings were defeated by him in an instant. This man must be a 9th realm divine king. A dragon clan expert like him must be famous in the 5 continents and 4 seas. But why haven't we heard of his name? Maybe he came from another continent. That's why we are so unfamiliar with him. Oh right, he had already defeated the great elder of the Demon Alliance. Why didn't he kill Hu Xinyue? Could it be that he was afraid of the Demon Alliance's revenge, so he showed mercy? Not necessarily. When they left, Hu Xinyue was obviously threatened by Long Tian. No matter what, this matter is considered to be over. As nameless people like us, let's give up on the idea of killing Long Tian. Even if they want to take revenge on Long Tian, it's the Demon Alliance's business. I guess only the Alliance Master, Divine King Luo, has enough power to kill Long Tian. The three groups of Divine Kings discussed for a while and then dispersed. In a few days, the news of this battle would spread to the various regions in the northwest. By then, Long Tian's name would definitely shock the world. Hu Xinyue used her original form of a heavenly fox to travel 300,000 miles in the sky. She only stopped at the peak of a snow mountain when she entered the depths of the wild returning mountain range. Swoosh! The moonlight flashed. She kept her original form of a heavenly fox and turned back into a cold and beautiful woman. As soon as she landed on the snow, she spat out a mouthful of blood. The scorching god's blood actually melted more than half of the ice and snow on the mountain peak, and smoke rose in spirals. Obviously, her injuries were not light, and her god power was in chaos. The injuries of the two heavenly kings were obviously more serious than Hu Xinyue's. Even if Ji Tianqing kept his 6 doppelgangers and gave them back their freedom, they still sat on the snow and circulated their energy to suppress their injuries. They did not have the slightest intention to resist. Hu Xinyue kept her purple gold whip and hurriedly sat cross-legged on the snow. She took out 2 high-grade King Divine pills and consumed them. A quarter of an hour later, she refined a portion of the medicinal power and temporarily suppressed her injuries. Only then did she open her eyes and look at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing had been standing at the edge of the cliff 1,000 feet in front of her. He looked down at the snow cliff and stood there quietly. On the surface, he seemed to be thinking about something. But in reality, he was communicating with Qianyu, who was in the distorted space and time. Chapter 3672. The reason why you spared my life is not because of the Demon Alliance. It is because you are related to the Heavenly Fox clan, right? Hu Xinyue sat on the snow, looking at Ji Tianqing with a pale face and asked. Of course, before speaking, she had already set up a soundproof array to cover the 2 seriously injured Heavenly Kings. Even though the 2 Heavenly Kings were busy healing and unlikely to hear her conversation with Ji Tianqing, she was still very careful. Ji Tianqing was still looking down at the snow cliff and did not turn around. He said indifferently, "You should tell me the details of the Heavenly Fox clan first." Hu Xinyue pursed her lips. After a moment of silence, she said, "In today's Dragon Realm, the 5 continents and 4 seas can live in peace, and all the clans can thrive and grow. For example, the Fox clan's 4 main branches were all prosperous and had many descendants, producing many experts. But who knows that only the Heavenly Fox clan has the royal bloodline and the real leader of the Fox clan? Unfortunately, the bloodline of the Heavenly Fox clan is extremely rare and precious, and they can only be female. It is impossible for them to reproduce and grow. Today, there are only a few Heavenly Fox clan members left in this world. They can be counted with one hand." Ji Tianqing frowned slightly, but he listened quietly and did not interrupt. Hu Xinyue looked up at the sky and smiled bitterly. She said self-deprecatingly, "The 4 branches of the Fox clan are prosperous, but they have even forgotten their king. These stupid and ignorant guys don't know it all. If not for the sacrifice of the Heavenly Fox clan, how could they have peace and stability today?" At this point, 2 drops of tears rolled down Hu Xinyue's eyes and she clenched her fists. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, "The sacrifice of the Heavenly Fox clan? In exchange for the peace and stability of the 4 branches of the Fox clan? What is going on?" Hu Xinyue's body trembled and she remained silent. Obviously, she regretted saying this and did not want to continue revealing the secret. But she also understood that Ji Tianqing was not a merciful person. If she insisted on hiding it, Ji Tianqing might not be merciful and spare her life. Thus, after a moment of silence, she continued, "In ancient times, the Fox clan was one of the sinful clans. As the king of the Fox clan, the Heavenly Fox clan could only sacrifice themselves to protect the entire Fox clan. Otherwise, all the foxes will be exterminated. Sinners. What do you mean? This was the first time Ji Tianqing had heard these two words, and he was puzzled. Hu Xinyue took a deep look at him and sneered, "Now I am even more suspicious that you are not an orthodox dragon. If you're really a dragon, then you should know that the dragon race is also one of the sinful races. Furthermore, the dragon race should be the leader of the sinners. Our fox race is only a vassal of your dragon race." Ji Tianqing's brows furrowed even tighter as he murmured to himself, "The dragon kind is the leader of sinners. The Fox clan was implicated by the Dragon clan. However, the Dragon clan is the master of the Dragon realm. Who can convict the Dragon clan?" Ha ha ha. Hu Xinyue immediately raised her head and laughed. Her expression was miserable, and her tone was full of mockery. "So what if you're from the Dragon race? So what if it's the Phoenix clan and the Kylan clan? Living under the heavens and in the heavenly way, they can only bow their heads and accept their fate." Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment, and then he suddenly understood and asked, "You mean, the sinners were decided by the heavenly way?" Hu Xinyue was silent and only sneered, which was a tacit admission. Ji Tianqing was even more puzzled and asked, "But, what did the Dragon clan, the Phoenix clan, the Kylan clan, and the Fox clan do to be deemed as sinners by the heavenly way?" Hu Xinyue continued to sneer and said in a mocking tone, "You're asking me. You should ask the heavenly way." Ji Tianqing remained silent as he speculated in his heart, "I didn't expect that there would be such a thing as a sinful clan. Even the most powerful demon clans are sinful clans recognized by the heavenly Tao. However, why didn't my master tell me these secrets? He is the master of the heavenly dragon continent, the first divine king after the ancient times. He should know these secrets." Thinking of this, he turned to look at Hu Xinyue and asked in a deep voice, "Even the peak divine king may not know these secrets. You are just the great elder of the Thousand Demon Alliance. How can you know so clearly with your mere strength of the 8th degree realm?" Ha ha ha. "As far as I know, the Fox clan is best at disguising and deceiving. They are very cunning. Is this a lie made up by you?" Hu Xinyue looked at him and sneered, "If you didn't spare my life and have a relationship with the heavenly Fox clan, why would I tell you this top secret? Besides, these secrets were not found by me, but, the Alliance Master told me." "Alliance Master? Divine King Luo?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, "It is said that he is one of the 2 new peak divine kings in the Star Source continent in the past 1,000 years. He is a newly risen peak divine king, but he knows these secrets. This prince is suddenly interested in him. Tell me his story." "Ha! Do you think I am telling you a story?" Hu Xinyue sneered disdainfully and said expressionlessly, "You haven't answered me. What is your relationship with the Heavenly Fox clan?" Ji Tianqing avoided answering and continued to ask, "Let me ask you, what is the relationship between you and the few heavenly foxes that exist today? Are you in contact with them?" Hu Xinyue frowned and said coldly, "I have said so much. It is time for you to answer my question. But don't forget, your life is in my hands. I can spare you, but I can also kill you." Long Tian was also expressionless and his tone was cold and stern. "Moreover, you should know that I have killed my way here. I am not a kind person." Hu Xinyue frowned again and thought to herself, "Soon, the Alliance Master will be here soon. I will endure for a while more and delay for a while." So, she closed her eyes and replied indifferently, "As far as I know, there are only 4 heavenly foxes in this world. 2 of them are my clansmen. They are still young and are cultivating. The other one is my mother, the master of Moon Divine Palace." Ji Tianqing asked again, "Are your 2 clansmen in Moon Divine Palace being taught by your mother?" "How do you know?" Hu Xinyue frowned again and asked in a low voice, her eyes full of vigilance. It was obvious that she was very concerned about her mother's safety. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "Nothing, I guessed." Hu Xinyue said coldly again, "Stop talking nonsense and answer my question." Ji Tianqing still did not answer and said with a smile, "If I find another clansman for you, how will you deal with her?" "What?" Hu Xinyue's expression suddenly changed. Her originally cold face was filled with shock and disbelief. Her cold eyes widened slightly and revealed unconcealable shock and joy. Ji Tianqing used his special ability to observe all of this and determined that it was real and not fake. Chapter 3673. You just said, you found my clansman. Hu Xinyue was so shocked and excited that she stood up and stared at Ji Tianqing with burning eyes. Ji Tianqing just smiled and didn't answer. Hu Xinyue was stunned for a moment, and then asked anxiously, "Say something. Let me ask you, is this true? Where is my clansman? How old is she now? Is she safe?" Ji Tianqing chuckled and said, "She is very young now. She is still at the peak of the divine monarch realm and is about to break through to the divine king realm. However, she is now in the safest place in the world. You don't have to worry." Hu Xinyue heaved a sigh of relief and said with relief, "That's good. Since she has reached the peak of the divine monarch realm and is about to break through to the divine king realm, then she should be over 1,000 years old. If her aptitude is not so good, she is probably 2,000 or 3,000 years old. She is not young anymore." Speaking up to this point, she suddenly thought of an extremely important matter and immediately said anxiously, "Long Tian, quickly bring me to see her, my clan's bloodline is special. She needs special methods and magical powers to break through to the divine king realm. Without my guidance, I am afraid she will never be able to break through to the divine king realm, and her lifespan will be damaged." As she said, Hu Xinyue rushed to Ji Tianqing. Ignoring her injuries, she wanted Ji Tianqing to take her to find her clansman. Seeing her like this, Ji Tianqing felt a little comforted and thought, no wonder Qianyue has been in seclusion for so many years and spent so many resources and treasures, but she still hasn't sensed the shackles. Breaking through to the divine king realm is so far away. I have suspected that only the special cultivation methods and magical powers of the Heavenly Fox clan can help her break through to the divine king realm. I didn't expect it to be so. It seems that I was wise to keep Hu Xinyue alive. With this thought in mind, he stretched out his hand and stopped the emotional Hu Xinyue. "Hu Xinyue, don't be impatient. If I want you to see her, you can see her at any time. But before that, you still have to answer my question. If you see her, what will you do with her?" Hu Xinyue could only suppress her excitement. She stared at Ji Tianqing with clear eyes and answered seriously, "I will definitely keep her by my side and do my best to teach her and help her reach the divine king realm. If she wishes to see the other clansmen or if she prefers to cultivate in peace, I will send her to Moon Awakening Divine Palace so that she can cultivate in peace." Ji Tianqing was quite satisfied with this answer. He nodded and asked, "Let me ask you again. Why were you so anxious when you learned about the Heavenly Fox bloodline? Have you been searching for the Heavenly Fox bloodline? Why are you looking for those Heavenly Foxes and gathering them together?" Hu Xinyue frowned. After calming down, she said in a calm tone, "That's right. For nearly 1,000 years, I have been traveling to various continents in search of the Heavenly Fox bloodline. However, my clan is a sinful clan that is not tolerated by the Heavenly Tao. Our bloodline is scarce to begin with, and it is extremely easy for us to die prematurely. That's why I've only found 2 Heavenly Foxes after searching the 4 seas and 5 continents for over 900 years. The reason I'm looking for my clansmen and nurturing them is to protect the continuation of the Heavenly Fox bloodline and not let it go extinct. More importantly, I want the Heavenly Fox clan to return to its peak and become the king of the Fox clan. My greatest wish is to make the Heavenly Fox clan prosperous to the extreme and have the right to ask the heavens, what have we done wrong? Why are we not tolerated by the Heavenly Tao? Hu Xinyue looked up at the sky and shouted these words in a sonorous and impassioned tone. His words were filled with hatred, unwillingness to submit. Ji Tianqing stared at her and raised his eyebrows. Well, that's a great dream. Unfortunately, my Qianyue only wants to be a salted fish. Goodbye. After he finished speaking, he cupped his hands and bowed to Hu Xinyue and turned to leave. What kind of joke was this? Qianyue had been with him for so many years and had been free and happy. Why would she follow Hu Xinyue to unify the Fox clan and question the heavens for no reason? It was purely because she had nothing better to do. Qianyue. Be a salted fish. Hu Xinyue was still immersed in her impassioned speech when Ji Tianqing suddenly poured a bucket of cold water on her. She immediately widened her eyes. Hey! Don't go! She reacted and quickly chased after Ji Tianqing into the sky. The two of them chased each other high in the sky, their speed as fast as lightning. At this time, Hu Xinyue, who had calmed down, finally understood many things. I know, the Heavenly Fox you are talking about is called Qianyue. You said that she is in the safest place in the world and that I can see her at any time. She is with you, isn't she? Hu Xinyue flew with all her might and followed behind Ji Tianqing, questioning him all the way. Ji Tianqing ignored her and continued to fly north. Hu Xinyue saw hope. How could she give up so easily? She followed Ji Tianqing closely and did not stop persuading him. Long Tian. I don't care what your relationship with Qianyue is, but she is a heavenly fox after all, a member of my clan. You can hate me, ignore me, and even belittle my dream. But you can't take away Qianyue's choice. She has the right to decide her own fate and control her own future. Most importantly, you can't help her break through the shackles and advance to the Divine King realm. Only by cultivating the special cultivation method of our Heavenly Fox clan can she break through the Divine King realm and even reach the peak of the Divine Path. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing nodded and said, You are right, I haven't gotten the cultivation method of the Heavenly Fox clan for the time being, so I can't help Qianyue. But I have already asked Qianyue. She would rather follow me and be a leisurely salted fish than follow you and become the king of the Fox clan and question the heavens. As long as I am strong enough, it doesn't matter whether she can break through the Divine King realm or not. Yes, he had been maintaining a spiritual connection with Qianyue. Although Qianyue did not show up, Ji Tianqing had conveyed Hu Xinyue's words to Qianyue. This result was also Qianyue's own choice. In addition, the little black dragon also dissuaded Qianyue from following Hu Xinyue. This woman looked a little crazy. But Ji Tianqing understood the little black dragon's selfishness, mainly because it did not want to be separated from Qianyue. Humph, these two had been together for hundreds of years. Ji Tianqing would not be surprised if a half-dragon half-fox monster was born one day. Seeing Ji Tianqing's determination, Hu Xinyue was anxious and continued to persuade him, Long Tian. Qianyue is young and ignorant, how can you be so selfish? Do you know that you will destroy her if you are so stubborn? It's none of your business, just pretend I didn't see you today. After saying this, Ji Tianqing sped up and soon widened the distance between them. Hu Xinyue's strength was not as good as Ji Tianqing's, and she was injured. No matter how hard she tried to speed up, she could not catch up with Ji Tianqing. But she suddenly sensed something and was no longer anxious, and there was a trace of a smug smile in her eyes. Humph, the Alliance Master is here, you can't escape. Chapter 3674. Ji Tianqing was flying high up in the sky as fast as a ray of light. He had already left Hu Xinyue behind by almost 10,000 miles, and the distance between them was still increasing. But at this moment, in the sky 10,000 miles in front of Ji Tianqing, there was a sudden roar of thunder. A huge gap appeared in the originally calm sky, and thousands of thunderbolts surged out from it. The rainbow-colored divine lightning forcefully tore open the sky, overflowing with powerful spatial fluctuations. Swoosh! Among the colorful thunderbolts, a tall figure descended from the sky and landed on the top of the sea of clouds. When the thunderbolts that surrounded the tall and domineering figure dissipated, the thousands of thunderbolts in the sky also dissipated. The gap in space that he had forcefully torn open was also quickly healing. This was a man wearing an ink-blue divine robe and a jade crown. He had a head full of purple-black hair that cascaded down his shoulders. The wind howled high up in the sky, but his hair and robe were still. This was because there was an invisible barrier around him. Using one's divine sense, one could see that it was layers of nomological laws and divine power that had formed a mysterious invisible shield. He had his hands behind his back and stood proudly with his back facing Ji Tianqing. Seeing him suddenly appear, Ji Tianqing immediately stopped and frowned as he observed his back. Although the man with purple-black hair had a human form on the surface, Ji Tianqing could see that he was actually a ferocious beast, and his true form must be as huge as a mountain. Moreover, what made him feel strange was that the man's divine soul aura and divine power gave him a sense of déjà vu. Just as Ji Tianqing was frowning and pondering, the man from the demon clan spoke in a low and dignified voice, "You killed my subordinates, and you still want to escape." Hearing this intimidating and dignified voice, Ji Tianqing's heart skipped a beat. He knew that the person in question had arrived. At the same time, the feeling of déjà vu about this person's aura also disappeared. At least, he was unfamiliar with this low and dignified voice. Ji Tianqing looked at his back and said expressionlessly, "If I'm not wrong, you are the leader of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, Divine King Luoho?" "That's right." The man from the demon clan did not turn his head. He looked proudly at the sky and said contemptuously, "Since you know that I'm here, you should know that you have no hope of escaping. Kill yourself." It was a short and low sentence, but it was undeniably domineering. Ji Tianqing wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he sneered and said in a playful tone, "I wouldn't be afraid even if your real body was here, let alone an avatar. Presumably, you must have spent many years of effort in order to cultivate this external incarnation. Of course, if I kill you, do you think it of?" Hearing this, of the demons of the Demon Alliance, he was of the demon clan of the demon of. "No wonder you dared to go against our alliance. It turns out that you do have some ability. You were actually able to tell at a glance that this was my external incarnation." As he spoke, he slowly turned to look at Ji Tianqing. It was only at this moment that Ji Tianqing finally saw his face clearly. He was a middle-aged man with a resolute and dignified face. His skin was bronze and he had a beard. Generally speaking, he was a dignified man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. There was nothing special about him. However, his pair of white and purple eyes seemed a bit abnormal, causing Ji Tianqing to frown and carefully observe. Upon closer inspection, Ji Tianqing realized that not only did this man have a pair of purple eyes, but he also had 9 layers of pupils. He looked very strange and mysterious. Ji Tianqing stared at the demon clan of the demon clan's eyes. Suddenly, he thought of someone. This person's purple eyes are so strange. Why are they the same as that person? They both have purple eyes and there are 9 layers. Just as he was frowning in thought, the purple-eyed man also saw his face clearly, and he trembled imperceptibly. Immediately, his eyes narrowed slightly. His double pupils contracted slowly as he stared at Ji Tianqing and observed carefully. At the same time, a thought flashed through his mind. This white-robed young man is, from the Dragon Clan. His body shape, appearance, and aura are all so familiar yet strange. Who is he? Could he be that person from back then? This is impossible. He left the Dragon Realm 1,000 years ago. It is said that he died in the void. How could he appear again? Just as Ji Tianqing and the man with purple eyes were looking at each other in silence, Wu Xinyue flew closer. She walked past Ji Tianqing and stopped in front of the purple-eyed man. She hurriedly bowed and greeted him respectfully. Xinyue greets the Alliance Master. Even though Wu Xinyue was wounded, her posture, eyes, and tone of her salute were meticulous and respectful. Obviously, she respected the Alliance Master with 9 layers of purple eyes from the bottom of her heart. Divine King Luoho glanced at her and nodded slightly. He said gently, "No need for formalities. Go to the side and treat your injuries." Understood. Thank you for your understanding, Alliance Master. Wu Xinyue bowed again and retreated behind him. However, before she began to heal herself, she sent a voice transmission to God King Luoho. Lord Alliance Master, this person only killed Heavenly King Yen and the 2 patrol envoys. He spared the lives of the 2 heavenly kings and me. Also, he has one of my clansmen in his hands. Her name is Qianyu. Divine King Luoho raised his eyebrows and nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. Then, he looked at Ji Tianqing again. The killing intent in his eyes weakened a little. I don't care what grudges you have with the Tao Tai and Cheong Qi races. I only want to say that you killed one of our heavenly kings and 2 inspectors. The alliance needs an explanation. Divine King Luoho's eyes were calm as he spoke coldly. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and smiled. So, you mean that regardless of right or wrong, the reputation of the Myriad Demon Alliance is the most important? Of course. Divine King Luoho said expressionlessly. Our alliance has established itself in the northwest and intimidates the entire Starsource continent. Even the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor has to treat us with respect. A nameless dragon tribe youth killed a pillar of our alliance. Naturally, he has to pay the price. Ji Tianqing was still smiling as he asked slowly, then what kind of explanation do you want? Your right arm, the sword in your hand, and, leave the Starsource continent and never take a step back. Divine King Luoho's tone was dignified, domineering, and cold. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and smiled coldly. Leave behind your right arm and sword, and leave the Starsource continent and never set foot on it again. Then, the Myriad Demon Alliance can announce to the outside world that you have killed me and avenged the experts under your command. This way, the Myriad Demon Alliance will still be dignified. Ha ha ha, this is a solution. If it were anyone else, they would have to agree to these conditions and even be grateful for your mercy. Divine King Luoho frowned and asked coldly, it looks like you don't agree. Chapter 3675. As God King Luoho's voice rang out, a formless killing intent suddenly enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles. The temperature suddenly dropped to the extreme, and even the space was frozen. However, Ji Tianqing silently dispelled the killing intent and pressure, and was not affected at all. He nodded, looked at God King Luoho, and said in a relaxed tone, of course not. My right arm still needs to wield a sword, and the sword in my hand needs to kill. How can I leave it to you? Furthermore, I will not be leaving the Starsource continent in the short term. I might come back often in the future. God King Luoho stared at him and said word by word, you are very confident. Ji Tianqing continued to smile. Not only am I confident, but I am also unafraid of death. God King Luoho was silent for a moment, and the corners of his mouth gradually rose into a cold smile. You should know that I am on par with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. Ji Tianqing curled his lips and said disapprovingly, no, you are wrong. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor is the first God King after the primordial era. He has cultivated for more than 29,000 years, and is about to take the final step. As for you, you have just reached that level, and are still very far from the final step. God King Luoho frowned and stared at him in silence. Ji Tianqing smiled and added, isn't it just a peak God King? Who hasn't? God King Luoho's frown deepened, and his 9 purple eyes flashed. He said slowly in a low voice, "The way you speak sounds very much like someone. Although you seem to be cursing, I do not intend to bicker with you." Ji Tianqing smiled and said faintly, "Your squinty eyes remind me of an old friend. That guy is like you, and likes to squint at people. He is always gloomy, and his mouth is very venomous. Therefore, I gave him the elegant nickname of Venomous Tongue." Hearing this, God King Luoho's body stiffened, and his pupils constricted. The cold smile on his face gradually disappeared. Ji Tianqing continued to stare at him, and his expression did not change. He continued with a playful smile, "Although he is best at the Tao of poison, Master said that it is ultimately a low-level Tao, and it will be difficult for him to achieve great things. Also, his name is very old-fashioned." God King Luoho stared straight at Ji Tianqing, his eyes flashing as if he wanted to see through him. Even though there was a storm in his heart, he suppressed his emotions very calmly. His tone did not waver as he asked calmly, "How old-fashioned?" Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and chuckled. "So unsophisticated, just like the farmers and coachmen of the mortal world." God King Rahu remained expressionless as he asked, "So, his name is Snakeman?" Ji Tianqing chortled as he looked at God King Rahu. "Yes, it's indeed very old-fashioned." God King Rahu raised his eyebrows, his eyes no longer narrowed. Returning to normal, he nodded with a serious expression. "In that case, your old friend is a snake." Ji Tianqing rubbed his chin and thought for a moment before replying, "According to Master, that fellow was originally an earth snake, but he made a great vow to become the divine dragon of the 9th heaven. Moreover, he wanted to be the king of divine dragons, the heavenly dragon." With that said, he stared at God King Rahu and asked with a smile, "Don't you think that's very laughable?" God King Rahu nodded and could not help but chuckle. "Yes. What a fool's dream. It's indeed laughable. However, I once had a young master. He was very special and was as confident as you." When he heard this joke, he did not find it funny at all. He maintained his usual stoic expression and pretended to be cold and profound. He even said that the heavens and earth were one and all things originated from the same source. There was no difference between the ants of the earth and the stars in the sky. Even the lowliest ant, as long as it has ambition and perseverance, will eventually become a star. With that said, God King Rahu stared at Ji Tianqing with a smile on his lips. He asked, "Tell me, is my young master a lunatic?" Ji Tianqing nodded in deep agreement. "Yes, it's indeed crazy talk." God King Rahu's smile deepened as he continued, "My young master is indeed a lunatic. He loves the sword like a madman and cherishes it as his life. His talent in the Tao of the sword is unparalleled. For the sake of the Tao of the sword, he can even give up on a woman who is infatuated with him. Do you think he has gone mad from practicing the sword?" "Yes." Ji Tianqing nodded again before asking with a smile, "A whimsical earth snake and a madman who loves the sword like a madman. What do you think will happen when they meet?" "Ha ha ha." God King Rahu laughed heartily as he answered, "They will turn the divine palace into a mess. Even the guards and servants will run away. Old Master will be so angry that his beard will fall off. He can only leave home and travel the 4 seas and 5 continents." Although he was laughing heartily, 2 streams of hot tears flowed from his eyes. Ji Tianqing also put away the sword of burial of heaven. He opened his arms and walked towards God King Rahu. In the blink of an eye, he crossed hundreds of kilometers in the sky and arrived in front of God King Rahu. However, God King Rahu did not open his arms to hug him. Instead, he crossed his arms in front of him and slowly knelt in the sky, bowing deeply towards Ji Tianqing. This was an ancient ritual of the dragon race. Very few dragon race members used it nowadays. However, this was the legacy of the divine palace and the rules set by that old dragon. God King Rahu knelt in front of Ji Tianqing in a nearly prostrating posture. Tears streamed down his face as his body trembled. He called out in an old and hoarse voice, "Snake Man greets young master." It was just 6 short words, but they seemed to use up all his strength. They were filled with the vicissitudes of life and bitterness. Ji Tianqing was also filled with sorrow. Hundreds of memories and thousands of scenes appeared in his mind. For a moment, he had a myriad of thoughts. However, he did not speak. God King Rahu remained prostrated on the ground, not even raising his head. Not far away, Hu Xinyue, who was supposed to be recuperating, had long been awakened by the two's crazy words. She had been quiet all this while, patiently watching Long Tian and God King Rahu talk about strange things. At that time, she had felt that something was amiss. Until now, when she saw God King Rahu prostrating himself with tears in his eyes, she was dumbfounded. Her eyes widened, and her mouth opened silently. Her eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. The sky was silent. The clouds were light and the wind was light. After a long time, Ji Tianqing slowly closed his eyes, suppressing the memories and sorrow in his heart. He reached out his hands and held God King Rahu's arms, helping him up. He said, "Get up. You are now a peak God King, the leader of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Don't let the various races in the world be shocked by kneeling and crying like this." When Ji Tianqing said this, he looked down at God King Rahu and did not look at Hu Xinyue. However, Hu Xinyue felt that he was referring to something else. Her heart skipped a beat, and she quickly closed her eyes and pretended to recuperate. God King Rahu also realized something. He quickly got up and nodded. "Yes. Young master is right, this old servant has been too careless. This old servant almost harmed young master, I hope young master will punish me." Chapter 3676. Both he and Ji Tianqing understood the reason behind Divine King Luoho's words. However, Hu Xinyue did not understand. She could not help but frown as she pondered. Ji Tianqing glanced at her and said indifferently, "All right, stop pretending. You're so childish." Hu Xinyue's face turned red as she felt guilty. However, given the situation, she could only open her eyes and apologize to Divine King Luoho. "Alliance Master, I did not mean to eavesdrop. Please." Divine King Luoho nodded slightly and said in a low and dignified tone, "This is my greatest secret. Therefore, you should know what to do." Hu Xinyue hurriedly bowed and said respectfully, "Rest assured, Alliance Master. I will keep my mouth shut. I would rather die than say a word." Divine King Luoho nodded in satisfaction and instructed, "All right, bring the 2 heavenly kings back to Myriad Demon Palace first. Settle the remaining matters as soon as possible." "Yes, Master." Hu Xinyue bowed again and prepared to leave. Divine King Luoho frowned and shouted in a dignified tone, "Come back." Hu Xinyue's body stiffened. She hurriedly turned around and bowed to await the order. Divine King Luoho frowned and said, "Apologize to young master." Hu Xinyue did not dare to hesitate. She hurriedly bowed to Ji Tianqing and said in a respectful tone, "Xinyue has eyes but failed to see. I have offended young lord. I hope young lord can forgive me. If young master wants to punish me, Xinyue will not dare to complain." Divine King Luoho frowned again and reprimanded angrily, "Bastard. How can you call me young master?" Then Hu Xinyue was dumbfounded. She hurriedly thought about how to address him. "Xinyue greets old master." "Old master, please." Divine King Luoho's eyebrows twitched. Anger surged in his eyes as he shouted, "Old master." Hu Xinyue was terrified. She could only brace herself and explain, "Alliance Master, you are Xinyue's master." Shouldn't your young master be called old master? Ahem. Ji Tianqing smiled awkwardly and pretended to cough to cover it up. Seeing that Luoho Divine King was about to fly into a rage again and reprimand the terrified Hu Xinyue, Qin Lai hurriedly came to the rescue. He laughed softly and said, "All right, it's just a form of address. There's no need to be so conflicted." Of course, the old lord did feel awkward when he heard this. "Hu Xinyue, you can just call me young master from now on." This. Hu Xinyue was even more terrified and didn't dare to agree. God King Rahu was rather anxious as well. He asked Ji Tianqing, "Young master, this form of address is disrespectful to you." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "Just call me that, it won't arouse any suspicion." "Oh right, in the future, if there's someone else around, don't call him young master. Just call him young master." God King Rahu felt that this made sense, so he nodded in agreement. Hu Xinyue heaved a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She quickly bowed and said, "Thank you for your understanding. Xinyue is very grateful. If young master has no other instructions, Xinyue will take her leave first." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He waved his hand and gestured for her to leave. Hu Xinyue bowed and retreated 100 feet away. Only then did she feel relieved. She flew away as if she was escaping. Looking at her back as she left in a panic, Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a smile. He felt that it was rather amusing. She must feel that it's very exciting to be in such a bizarre situation, right? God King Rahu looked at Hu Xinyue's back and stole a glance at Ji Tianqing's expression. He lowered his voice and said, "Young master, that girl and her mother's lives were saved by this old servant. She's usually quite smart and clever. She's also obedient and pleasant. If you don't mind, this old servant will take the initiative to make her your personal maidservant." Before he could finish speaking, Ji Tianqing turned his head and looked at him. He sneered and said, "Maidservant? Personal maidservant? Snake Fu, who do you think young master is?" God King Rahu hurriedly smiled and said in an embarrassed tone, "Young master, you were as cold as an iceberg in the past. You didn't get close to women. Old master felt that it was a pity. Now that you've finally changed, if you can take more wives, I believe old master's spirit in heaven will be gratified." Ji Tianqing's smile disappeared. He said seriously, "Young master has already married and has children. He and his wife are harmonious, and his family is happy. Don't make trouble. As for master, Snake Fu, when I went to Mysterious Paradise, I heard from the divine general guarding the gate that master has already passed away. What's going on? Master is the master of the heavenly dragon continent, a peak divine king. How can he pass away?" After a pause, he asked again, "Also, why didn't you stay in the heavenly dragon divine palace? Why did you come to the Starsource continent? Why did you change your name to Rahu and establish this myriad demon alliance?" Sigh. God King Rahu sighed when the Lord of the Heavenly Dragon was mentioned. He said in a low voice, "Young master, this is a long story. It's not something that can be explained in a few words. This is not the place to talk. Follow me back to the Myriad Demon Palace, and I'll tell you in detail." Ji Tianqing thought for a moment. The Myriad Demon Palace, the headquarters of the Myriad Demon Alliance, was outside the 3 northern regions. Although it was far away, Snake Fu had a way to rush back quickly. Therefore, he nodded in agreement. After all, he had already planned to return to the Heavenly Dragon continent to investigate the truth of his master's death. Now that he had met his master's old servant, it was a blessing. He naturally had to interrogate him properly. Swoosh! God King Rahu took out a snake-shaped sword and pierced it into the sky. Suddenly, a gap appeared in the sky, and a dazzling white light lit up, surging with spatial divine power. "Young master, please follow me." God King Rahu bowed and flew into the gap in space with Ji Tianqing, and disappeared. Swoosh! In the next moment, divine light flashed, and space became chaotic. The two of them traveled millions of miles and appeared in a majestic city. God King Rahu brought Ji Tianqing into a palace in the city and left the city through an underground teleportation divine array. Next, the two of them traveled tens of millions of miles and arrived at the border of the Azure Snow region. The two of them flew across the border, and God King Rahu used his teleportation technique to bring Ji Tianqing into another city. Just like that, the two of them used teleportation and teleportation divine arrays to cross 3 regions in 4 hours and returned to the Black Sea of the Dark Water region. This was a black water region with a radius of 3 million miles. Because it was so large, it was called the Black Sea. This inland sea had special powers and resources, and it also had all kinds of strange phenomena and miraculous effects. The headquarters of the Myriad Demon Alliance was set up here. The Myriad Demon Divine Palace was located in the center of the Black Sea. It suppressed the entire Black Sea and gathered divine power for millions of miles. Ji Tianqing followed God King Rahu to the center of the Black Sea. When he saw the Myriad Demon Divine Palace, he was amazed. Above the boundless Black Sea, a cloud platform with a radius of 10,000 miles floated. Above the cloud platform, there was a black city filled with pavilions, terraces, and mansions. This Myriad Demon city was not big, only a few hundred miles wide, but it had an extremely solemn, dignified, and solemn aura. Those who had the right to live in this city were the upper echelons and core members of the Myriad Demon Alliance, as well as their family members. Chapter 3677. 10,000 Demon City. In the center of the 10,000 Demon Divine Palace, in the most sacred and solemn Alliance Master's study. In the spacious and bright study, only Ji Tianqing and Luoho, master and servant, were present. It was exceptionally quiet. But outside the study, there were 2 divine king realm guards, as well as more than 20 high divine lords hidden sentries. This place was heavily guarded. Even the elders, division masters, and deacons of the 10,000 Demon Alliance could not casually approach. In addition, the study was set up with a supreme-grade king-level divine formation that could block divine sense. Ji Tianqing and Luoho's conversation in the study was extremely safe and would not leak anything. Outside the window, the sun was setting and the sky was darkening. In the study, the gemstone lamps on the wall shone with a soft light. Ji Tianqing sat on the large jade chair beside the study table, looking at Luoho with shining eyes. As for God King Rahu, he stood to the side and bowed slightly, appearing just like a servant. A peak God King, the 10,000 Demon Alliance Master who could be compared to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, was actually so respectful to a dragon race youth. If anyone saw this scene, they would probably be scared to death. You just said that Master left the Heavenly Dragon continent more than 900 years ago. Ji Tianqing looked at Luoho and asked with a frown, then where did he go? What did he want to do? Luoho nodded and answered in a low voice, Old Master said that he wanted to atone for his sins, so he left the Heavenly Dragon continent and the Dragon realm. Atone for his sins? Left the Dragon realm? Ji Tianqing's frown deepened. He asked, why did he want to atone for his sins? Who did he want to atone for his sins? Did he leave the Dragon realm to go to the outer realm? Luoho nodded, yes. But Old Master only left behind these 2 sentences and did not say where he went. The outer realm is extremely vast. There are 6 major star regions nearby, and even further away is the endless sea of stars. As for what sins Old Master wanted to atone for and to whom, this old servant does not know. Ji Tianqing's heart was heavy. He asked in a low voice, so, you left your doppelganger in the Starsource continent to control the Myriad Demon Alliance, while your true self left the Dragon realm to look for Master in outer space? Yes. God King Rahu nodded and said, ever since this old servant established the Myriad Demon Alliance 700 years ago, my original body left the dragon realm. Over the past few hundred years, this old servant's main body has traveled through the two major star fields, but to no avail. However, as long as I don't see old master's corpse and belongings, this old servant will continue to search for them. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment, then asked doubtfully, Master only left the dragon realm and never appeared again. This can only be called missing. Why do you and the powerhouses of the dragon realm all believe that Master has fallen? Could it be that Master's lamp of destiny has already been extinguished? Of course, he knew that his master, Heavenly Dragon Emperor's Heaven's Mandate Lantern was placed in the secret hall of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace, and it had been lit for over 29,000 years. According to common sense, if there were no accidents, Heavenly Dragon Emperor's lifespan should have reached 90,000 years. God King Rahu nodded again, tears welling up in his eyes, and said in a sorrowful tone, yes. 3 years after Old Master left, the lamp of destiny was extinguished. This. Ji Tianqing's body stiffened, great sorrow filled his heart, and although there were no tears in his eyes, they were already red. In a daze, his memory returned to more than 1,500 years ago. At that time, the five elements world was sealed, and he was unable to ascend, so he used the space-time roulette to forcefully break through the seal of the five elements world and ascend to the upper realm. Originally, he should have ascended to the God realm. But for some reason, he actually ascended to the dragon realm and fell into the endless primitive forest. At that time, he was heavily injured, and his consciousness was blurry, and he was unconscious for about 7 days and 7 nights. When he opened his eyes, the first person he saw in the dragon realm was that white-haired dragon elder wearing hemp clothes and cloth shoes. He didn't know why, but that ordinary-looking old man was like a holy and benevolent god in his eyes. It was that old man who saved his life and healed his injuries with a supreme divine ability. Then, the old man said something that he would never forget. You are not a demon, but you ascended to this place, and the first person you saw when you opened your eyes was this old man. Perhaps, this is an opportunity for you and me, and also the will of the heavens. This old man has never accepted a disciple, but today, I will make an exception and accept you as my disciple. Come with this old man. Just like that, Kenshin became the only disciple of the white-haired old man, and entered the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. Not long after, he had a name, Long Tian. Later, he found out the true identity of the white-haired old man in hemp clothes. One of the 5 overlords of the dragon realm, the peerless God King in charge of the entire Heavenly Dragon continent, Heavenly Dragon Emperor. Many years later, Long Tian asked his master many times why Heavenly Dragon Emperor made an exception for him and chose him as his disciple. Heavenly Dragon Emperor just smiled and replied that it was the will of the heavens. Until today, Ji Tianqing still did not understand why Heavenly Dragon Emperor accepted him as his disciple and treated him as his own. The so-called will of the heavens, he only took it as an excuse for Heavenly Dragon Emperor. He was very clear in his heart, how much effort Heavenly Dragon Emperor put into him, how much he doted on him. But the strange thing was, he had always regarded himself as a disciple, and respected Heavenly Dragon Emperor. But Heavenly Dragon Emperor never claimed to be his master. Not only did Long Tian find it strange, the old servant Herfu was also puzzled. There was once when Herfu played chess with Heavenly Dragon Emperor and asked him about it. Heavenly Dragon Emperor smiled and said while stroking his beard, to meet in this life, it is the fate of this life, what master, disciple, it is just an empty title. If there is a previous life, this life, who is the master, who is the disciple, it is unknown. Herfu was confused, he thought that Heavenly Dragon Emperor was open-minded and had unparalleled wisdom, but he still did not understand what he meant. For this matter, Herfu and Long Tian discussed it in private for a few months. Just as Ji Tianqing was immersed in his memories and thoughts, God King Rahu continued, although the extinguishing of the destiny lamp signifies that the old master has perished, the destiny lamp has been extinguished. But as long as the old master's remains and belongings are not seen, this old servant does not believe that the old master has fallen. After all, the old master was the first generation divine king after the ancient times, one of the most ancient and powerful experts in the dragon realm. His life was as long as the heavens, how could he fall? Ji Tianqing nodded slightly, and said with certainty, Master has never done evil in his life, he is the most sacred among the few major dragon races, he is the most tranquil expert. He has great wisdom, great compassion, if the heavens have eyes, how could he fall for no reason? I also believe that Master is still alive. The master and servant looked at each other, their eyes were very firm and filled with hope. After a moment of silence, Ji Tianqing asked again, although Master is missing, Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace is still there. Herfu, why did you leave Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace? Why did you not guard Master's cave residence and foundation? Luoho Divine King quickly kowtowed, and said with shame, this old servant is useless, I am unable to stop the new Dragon Emperor from entering the palace and taking over the old master's foundation, please punish me. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.